The moon over Blackwater Bay lay low and red, a dying coal poised to tumble into the sea. Davos Seaworth stood alone on the Dragonstone quay, the salt-glazed planking creaking beneath his boots while surf hissed like 1,000 distant knives. Below, the tide slurped around the ribs of his black-hulled skiff. Summer's breeze carried the reek of tar, of fish long since gutted, and the copper tang of the lantern he held aloft. Yet it was not the night air that made his heart pound. It was the parchment pressed flat against his chest beneath his rough-spun jerkin. A thin bundle, sealed with cracked wax, bearing the crowned stag of House Baratheon. He had risked mast and mastman alike to reach Driftmark, scoured the archives of Lord Celtigar for days without sleep, bribed a Septon's apprentice in the back corridors of King's Landing, and then, Seven help him, stepped onto the very wharves below the Red Keep under the guise of a common herringmonger. There he'd bribed yet another man, an aging master of coin whose trembling hand had scribed the ledgers of King Robert's own household. The parchment Davos carried contained more than the tally of barrels or casks. It held the exact dates Robert Baratheon had fathered his trueborn children, the very days court physicians had recorded Queen Cersei to be secluded in her bedchamber, months apart from the king. And beneath those dates lay the nurse's deposition Davos had coaxed from the woman who once fed Myrcella at her breast. The queen's children were golden even at the nipple, their downy hair as bright as her twin brothers. If the words were true, if the seals unbroken, the boy Davos had watched crowning himself with cruelty on the walls of Storm's End was no rightful heir of Aegon's throne at all. In his mind's eye Davos still saw King Stannis pacing the audience hall in Dragonstone, jaw clenched as the tide, insisting the seven themselves had turned their faces. "Proof," Stannis had snarled. "Bring me proof, or I'll have only treason and whispers." So Davos had taken ship and taken risk and taken sin upon his soul for the sake of his king. But what he'd learned on the rotting wharves was darker than Shadowfire. Proof alone would not suffice. The small folk might doubt their eyes, yet they would kneel to the High Septon's word as they bent to the sun at noon. Davos exhaled, his breath a ragged thread that vanished in the night. He wiped salt from his beard, stroked the wax seal once more, and stepped aboard his skiff. The oars were already bedded in their locks, wrapped with wool to muffle every stroke. The sea welcomed him with a rhythmic thud against the hull, as though the mother herself beat a warning on his planks. He did not heed. Each pull drew him farther from the basalt claws of Dragonstone, toward the pale shimmer of mainland lanterns. 3 days he rowed when wind failed, and 3 nights he sailed when it served. Rain roared across the water on the second dusk, shrouding him in a gray curtain that hid the coast watchers' torches. He welcomed the storm, though it soaked his cloak and chilled his bones. Clouds would blot the half-moon, and silence would gift him passage along the coast past Massey's Hook. Only once did he see another vessel, a broad-bellied cog flying Lannister crimson out of Lannisport, pounding north under oiled canvas. Davos flattened himself against the bottom boards, heart hammering, hand tight on the dagger hidden beneath a coil of rope. The cog slipped past like a red-painted wraith, bound for King's Landing no doubt, and soon its lanterns were lost behind rain-ragged curtains. By dawn of the 4th day, Dragonstone was a smudge on the horizon astern, and the wide mouth of the Blackwater beckoned before him, its waters murky with silt from 1,000 rivers. Towers of the capital pierced low-slung mists. The needle of Baelor September rising higher than any mast, the spears of Maegor's holdfast glinting like polished bone, and beyond them all, the Red Keep crouched crimson on Aegon's hill. Davos felt the vastness of the city pressing upon him even at this distance, a brooding leviathan of stone and secret. He beached the skiff south of the river mouth in the shadow of Driftmark's forgotten pier, buried anchor in damp sand, and trudged inland along weed-choked game trails. Every mile his blood seemed to thicken with dread. He was no highborn lord. He was the Onion Knight, smuggler once and smuggler again. King's men called him brave. He felt only the weight of headsman's axe upon his neck. Yet Davos remembered Stannis's gray gaze, the jaw that could crack granite. The realm must know, his king had growled, and it will heed truth from the mouth of the gods. 2 leagues from the city, he halted beside an abandoned windmill, its veins shattered by past storms. There he swapped his salt-stained cloak for the plain gray robes of a lay brother of the faith, the garb he'd won at sword point from a half-drunk beggar Septon in Bitterbridge. He knelt amongst tall grass, head bowed. "Mother, grant me mercy," he whispered. "Warrior, grant me courage." Yet when he spoke to the Father for justice, he thought of his own sons, slain by wildfire beneath this very bay. Justice, Davos decided, might be the only gift left to him. Twilight crowned the city in rose and iron by the time he reached the gate of the gods. Septons in rough-spun queued for alms beneath the arch, while whores in painted masks drifted among them whispering psalms of another kind. Davos kept his hood low, hands folded like one accustomed to prayer. Guards in Lannister crimson eyed each traveler, but beggar seps passed unnoticed, their smell warding off suspicion as surely as any sigil. Within the city walls the air thickened. Smoke of tallow candles, charred mutton fat, horse dung, the tang of river rot. The streets flowed like rivers themselves, choked with pilgrims bound for Baelor. September. Davos followed that current uphill, step by measured step. Each jostling elbow, each passer's glance was a blade scraped across his spine. Somewhere beyond shutters, a crier shouted of new levies called for the war in the Riverlands. Somewhere else, a bard sang of King Joffrey's mailed victory upon the Blackwater, though Davos heard only the lies ring in each verse. Baelor. September loomed above all, its marble steps as wide as a galleon's beam, its doors of carved weirwood yawning as though to swallow the city whole. Torches sizzled in iron sconces, painting saints and sinners alike in flickering gold. The crowd parted for a procession of elaborately robed graybeards, the most devout Davos knew. Their beards were perfumed, their rings heavy with gemstones, their eyes sharp for favor. Behind them padded the Holy Guard, armor inlaid with sevenfold silver stars. Davos used the swirl of cortege to slip closer to the doors, heart slamming in his chest. Within the great September the air cooled. Incense smothered the reek of city. Mirrors captured torchlight, casting it across vaulting domes. Statues of the Seven watched from niches, faces serene, as though stone alone might judge the hearts of men. At the altar stood the High Septon himself, once a gold-cloaked son from Flea Bottom, now draped in cloth of silver, a small crystal orb trembling in his hands. He had been elected barely half a year past, chosen by Queen Mother's coin if rumor spoke true. Yet even purchased piety wore the crown of faith in this hall. Davos bowed low, lips brushing marble. He waited until chant died, until acolytes dispersed. Then he rose on unsteady legs and approached the white-robed guards flanking the altar. "I bear confession," he murmured, voice ragged, "for the High Septon alone, and the realm may hang upon it." The first guard, broad as a rack ox, snorted. "Confess at the feet of the Father like any sinner." Davos met the man's gaze. "The Father's justice concerns the crown and the realm alike. Does your holiness refuse to listen?" He passed the parchment forward just enough for the stag's seal to glimmer in candlelight. King Robert's own hand. Skepticism flickered into curiosity, curiosity to alarm. The guard rapped his haft upon marble and muttered in the ear of a purple-robed prelate, who in turn hurried to the High Septon. Eyes like wet pearls fixed upon Davos. Lips pursed. A curt gesture followed. In a side chapel hung with cloth of gold, the High Septon seated himself upon an ebony stool. Davos knelt before him. The doors closed, sealing them in fragrant gloom. "Rise, brother," the Septon intoned, voice mellifluous as dove-song. "The gods see equal in their sight, even the tattered." Davos stood. His hand trembled as he presented the sealed sheath, but his voice carried the weight of the narrow sea. "These letters tell a tale of bastardy, your High Holiness. King Robert was cuckolded. The boy Joffrey claims the throne yet shares not a drop of Baratheon blood. The realm bleeds for his lie." The Septon regarded wax and crown and stag. In that ink-dark gaze Davos glimpsed calculation. "Where did you come by these, good brother?" "From the ledgers of the royal household, from the sworn nurse of Princess Myrcella, from the midwife who attended Queen Cersei in her confinements." Their marks are affixed within. Open them, and you shall see." Candlelight trembled as though the parchment itself breathed. The Septon broke the seal. Davos waited, every heartbeat a knell. He watched lips move silently, watched brows knit. When the Septon lifted his gaze, candle flames painted hollows beneath his cheekbones. "If this be truth," he whispered, "then every oath I swore to crown and faith lies broken. The Queen Mother sits upon my council. The king himself bows in this hall. To brand them false is to set torch to dry hay." "Better fire than falsehood," Davos replied, surprised at the steel in his own voice. "Kings rise and fall, yet the seven endure. Let the realm learn the truth and seek justice." The Septon's rings clicked upon ebony. For a long moment he studied the parchment once more. Then slowly, deliberately, he folded the documents, slid them within his sleeve, and offered Davos a trembling smile. "Brother." "Davos, is it? The Onion Knight, I think. Yes, I remember your face from the Blackwater. Your courage is not forgotten, but courage must bend to wisdom. Give me time to ponder, to pray. Truth is a mighty hammer. Strike poorly and it shatters faith." The chapel door creaked. "Return on the morrow," the Septon said, "and bring no escort. We will speak further, you and I, before the stars and the stranger." Davos bowed, throat dry. He left the side chapel and emerged once more into the echoing nave. The seven-pointed star windows cast jeweled rays upon marble. Pilgrims muttered devotions, unaware of the thunder ripening above their heads. Outside, the September dusk had fallen. Gulls wheeled over the city like scraps of paper on stormwind. Davos made his way down Cobbler's Square, past butchers closing shutters, past barefoot children playing at war with sticks. At every corner he half expected a mailed gauntlet to seize him, yet none came. He found boarding at a humble inn called the Lantern's Rest and laid 2 coppers for a pallet beneath the rafters. There he lay awake, staring into darkness, counting each slow breath until dawn. Gray light had barely gilded the rooftops when the summons came. A novice in pale robes rapped softly on the inn door. "Brother," he whispered, "the High Septon bids you break fast with him." Davos followed, and all the while the hairs rose upon his neck. A breakfast, either mercy or doom, awaited between bread and ale. He was ushered this time not into the side chapel, but through cloistered halls that smelled of beeswax and myrrh, up a winding stair, and into a windowed solar overlooking the September's inner garden. The High Septon waited beside a table set with figs, cheese, and warm brown bread. 2 of the most devout stood behind him, faces blank as chalk. Davos noted the absence of guards. "Come," the Septon said gently. "Eat." Davos took a seat. The bread tasted of ash in his mouth. One of the devout produced the parchments, unfurled them upon the table. "We have inspected the seals," he intoned, consulted ledgers in the September's own vault, questioned brothers who once served within the Red Keep. The threads align. The lion's cub is no stag. The High Septon folded his hands. "But truth must walk clothed in prudence. If we cry bastard, the realm erupts. The small folk love the boy king for his victory over Stannis." Davos blinked. Victory? A victory wrought by wildfire sorcery, by the pyromancer's green hell. Ask the burned. "We do not write banners with wounds," the Septon interrupted softly. "Perception is war's first casualty." He met Davos's gaze. "Tell me, Onion Knight, do you serve King Stannis or the Seven above?" "Both," Davos said after a moment. "For my king is rightful, and the gods love justice." The Septon's sigh seemed laden with centuries. "I can proclaim this from the pulpit of Baelor's September," he said, tapping the parchments. "Yet proclamation alone invites blades. The Queen Mother will denounce us. The king will call for my head. The faith militant lies disbanded. Who defends the sept when the goldcloaks bar the door? Who guards the innocent when Lannister steel storms the Isle?" Davos's pulse hammered. "There is another path." The devout frowned. "Speak. Summon the queen," Davos said, voice low. "Bid her kneel in sanctity. Swear before the seven that her son is Robert's get. If she refuses, only guilt binds her tongue. If she agrees, let Maester Pycelle stand witness. Let Grand Maester Gorman draw leech and blade. Blood will show truth. The room grew still. The High Septon's gaze drifted to the garden beyond the glass, where doves pecked at crumbs among marble saints. Blood, he murmured. A king's blood before the realm. The humblest test, undeniable. His fingers tightened upon the crystal orb he held. It could work. The devout exchanged uneasy looks. The lioness will never submit. Then guilt will condemn her, Davos replied. Silence pooled like ink. At last the High Septon nodded, slow as winter sunrise. I will prepare a sermon for the morrow. A simple call. Mother's love, father's legacy. The realm's need for certainty. The small folk will cheer for piety, not politics. Then we invite the crown to stand before the seven, to prove the blood that sits the throne. Davos exhaled, a tremor in the breath. Thank you, High Holiness. Do not thank me yet, the Septon said. Pray, for if this fails, the lion will roar, and all the doves in the garden will scatter. He offered Davos the parchments. Hide these well until the day is done. We meet at midday prayer. Davos tucked the proof inside his jerkin once more. He bowed and withdrew. Outside, the September spells told prime, sending ripples of sound across rooftops. Sunlight speared through clouds, gilding the city's river of slate-gray tiles. Somewhere below, a peddler's horn bleated, a smith's hammer rang. Life went on, unaware of the storm that brewed in marble halls. Down on the Street of Sisters, Davos paused beneath a stone arch and pressed back against cool wall. His legs shook. He had done all a smuggler could, more than any knight of rose and heraldry would dare. Yet his task was not finished. He must survive the hours until noon, must place those parchments in the High Septon's hands before altar and throng. He must become shadow among shadows. So he slipped into alleys, ducked through tanneries where smoke blinded the unwary, crossed courtyards where washing lines became curtains to hide his passage. Twice he heard the tramp of gold cloaks searching door to door, and twice he swallowed the name rattling in his chest. Onion Knight, traitor. Hours crawled. Midday sun blazed overhead when at last he emerged in the square of the Seven. A sea of humanity spilling around the marble steps. Peasant women clutched infants. Hedge knights leaned on spears. Merchants in saffron robes whispered of new tariffs. All eyes turned upward as the High Septon appeared upon Baelor's balcony, arms outstretched like wings. Davos pressed forward, heart hammering. He felt the parchments like a burning brand. He must reach the robed novices at the foot of the steps, pass the proof, watch truth ascend the pulpit. But the press of bodies was thick, every elbow a fortress. Upon the balcony, the High Septon began to speak, voice amplified by clever geometry of stone. Children of the Seven, sunder your doubts and hearken. The mother loves that which is pure, the father judges that which is true. His sermon wound like silk through the square, coaxing heads to nod. Davos rested himself between a fat innkeep and a limping sellsword. Each pace was a victory, yet from the corner of his eye he caught a glint of crimson. 3 gold cloaks pushing against the tide, eyes scanning faces. One pointed, shouted. A woman screamed. The crowd heaved aside, and suddenly Davos found himself exposed, the sun blazing upon his hood. He spun, ducking as a mailed fist swung. Fingers clawed at his cloak, but he shrugged free, plunging through pilgrims. Somewhere behind, the gold cloaks roared accusation. Stannis spy! Seize him! Davos shoved past a weeping lass, tumbled over a crate of oranges that burst underfoot. Juice showered his legs. Skins slid like eels beneath him. He clutched the parchments tight as he staggered toward the steps. Above, the High Septon faltered mid-sermon, gaze flicking to the commotion. Peace, children, he called. Bells clanged. The crowd surged in panic, crushing inward. Davos felt ribs creak as bodies pressed like iron jaws. A mummer fell beneath hooves, blood-speckled marble. Then he saw the novice he'd met at dawn, pale eyes wide. Davos hurled himself forward, thrust the bundle toward the youth's chest. "For the Septon," he rasped. "Now!" Without waiting, he turned aside, drawing the gold cloaks after him like hounds. Down a side street he fled, heart a cannon in his ears. He vaulted a midden heap, burst through a tannery door, scattering vats of urine brine. Acrid fumes blinded pursuit. He leapt from a window into a waterway that stank of offal, swam beneath a rowing bridge where beggars pissed. When at last he surfaced beneath the shadow of a ruined bell tower, lungs aflame, he dragged himself onto mossy stones and wretched blackwater filth. From here the September spires were distant silhouettes, yet he fancied he heard bells still tolling, and perhaps a cheer or a roar of outrage. Sound diffused in city canyons. Davos did not know. He crawled beneath ivy and lay shaking until purple dusk cooled his fevered skin. In his mind he saw King Stannis' stern face once more, and the parchment passing from novice to Septon's hand, and the seven themselves weighing the truth. Night gathered. Somewhere far off, a bell told the hour of evening prayer. Davos wondered whether the High Septon had spoken the words, whether the lioness had fled or fought, whether crimson banners yet flew above the castle. He did not know, but he knew this. He had done all that an honest man might, and more than most lords dared. Tomorrow, if fate allowed, he would slip from the city as he had entered and seek his king. And if truth had found wings in marble halls, perhaps the realm herself would soon stir, rubbing sleep from eyes long blinded by gold and lies. PGSQL. Dawn broke a second time on King's Landing as though the world itself could sense the tremor beneath its stones. Gray mist clung to rooftops like ghost web, and in every alley the hush that precedes some great shout seemed to press upon the lungs of bakers and criers alike. Davos Seaworth crouched beneath the shattered bell tower ruins on Rhaenys' hill, wrapped in rancid burlap filched from a tanner's yard to mask the onion sigil sewn upon his tunic. Ratty cats stalked the rubble. One hissed when he shifted his weight, but Davos did not flinch. He had learned in the black cell beneath Storm's End how to keep motionless even while dread gnawed his marrow. He dozed fitful through the last hours of night, drifting only when exhaustion overpowered caution. Each time his eyes closed he saw again the novice's thin fingers clutching the parchment bundle, saw the gold cloaks wading through pilgrims, felt his own ribs crack against pressboards and cobble. In those half-dreams he never reached the bell tower. Sometimes the pursuing guards caught him and hauled him before Queen Cersei, her green eyes bright with malice. Sometimes Joffrey himself aimed a crossbow at Davos's heart while crowds cheered. He always woke wet with sweat and grime, the copper stench of panic filling his nostrils. At full sunrise, distant bells rang lauds. He listened, parsing the pattern. Baelor's September typically pealed 7 strokes for morning worship. Today they told 9, 2 extra notes that rang strangely dissonant. A call to special assembly, or a summons of penance? Davos could not say. Still, he felt a flicker of hope. Some change had taken place within marble walls since he fled. He bit into a crust of pilfered bread, so hard it bloodied his gums. Food steadied his thoughts. He must learn what had transpired after his escape, and nothing served information like the city's gutters. Cobblers' wives, washerwomen, wine cellars. They gossiped faster than ravens flew. So Davos rose on aching legs, brushed the worst of moss from his cloak, and limped into the flow of morning traffic as if he were one more nameless beggar drawn by the September's extraordinary peal. The street of silk lay quiet still, shutters thrown wide to air last night's perfumes. Davos paused near a flower stall where an old woman trimmed wilted daisies. He nodded respectfully and lifted one bloom between calloused fingers. "A strange bell this morn, good mother," he ventured, voice hoarse. "What news from the September?" The florist sniffed. "They say His High Holiness seeks the Queen's own presence afore the altar. Word came down the hill at cockcrow. Validation of blood, the criers called it." Davos's pulse quickened. "A blessing for Prince Tommen, perhaps?" She laughed, a harsh bark. "Blessing? If it be blessing, Why has the queen closed the keep's gates and posted triple guard? Something foul's afoot. Never heard tell of a High Septon ordering royals to prove themselves. Her gaze flicked to his burlap robe, perhaps noting its ill fit. If you're bound that way, best carry prayer on your lips. Always, good mother? Davos murmured, leaving a copper on her stall before moving on. Throughout the city, similar snippets drifted his way. A stable boy claimed a hushfall in the Red Keep's great yard, as if even the ravens knew to hold their cause. A septa gathering orphans for the morning meal whispered that the most devout had barred themselves in a council chamber through the darkest hours, parchments piling like snow about their feet. A brewer swore on his cask that gold cloaks thronged the street of the sisters in numbers unseen since the wildfire siege. Not to keep pilgrims orderly, but to seize certain treasonous scrolls rumored to exist. Each fragment braided into certainty within Davos's skull. The novice had delivered the proof, the High Septon had convened his inner circle, and now the faith meant to force Queen Cersei's hand. Whether she would yield or lash like a cornered lioness remained a mystery. But if steel met marble this day, innocence would perish by hundreds. Davos felt as though he balanced upon a blade's edge. One misstep and the realm would tumble into slaughter. He ducked into a wine sink beneath a crooked signboard, the whimpering mermaid, half to slake thirst, half to listen further. Inside, lamplight still wavered from the night's final patrons. 3 sellswords in spotted mail and a sallow-faced scribe. The scribe spoke too loudly, as lonely men often do, waving a parchment of his own. I tell you, it says the queen must present the king's blood for judgment afore the 7. Not even Lord Tywin can balk the faith if the small folk stand watching. One sellsword spat, pious fools. A lion's teeth break Septon bones same as any. But the High Septon has truth, the scribe insisted, tapping his page. He holds King Robert's seal, so my master told me. A nurse's sworn deposition. All in order. 'Twas a knight of onions who smuggled it here. Davos shrank into shadow near the stairwell, heart thudding. Already the rumor named him. He finished a watered ale in 2 gulps, tossed a couple of pennies, and slipped out before drink loosened tongues further. He could not remain in King's Landing much longer. If Goldcloaks knew his part, they would scour the city. Yet he dared not flee until he knew whether the High Septon would stand firm. Noon approached, the sun hot on slate shingles. Davos threaded as close to Baylor Square as watchmen permitted, blending among fishmongers and flax spinners. He noted more soldiers than earlier, both Goldcloaks under command of the City Watch and red-cloaked Lannister guards flown east with Lord Tywin after the Battle of Blackwater. Their sergeants shouted conflicting orders, elbowed each other for vantage, but none looked certain whom to obey. Tension buzzed like summer wasps. At the foot of the September's grand steps, a wooden dais had been hastily erected, draped in cloth of gold emblazoned with the father's scales and the crown stag of House Baratheon entwined. The symbolism struck Davos. Justice and kingship nodded inseparably. Nearby, a priest placed a brass basin atop a small altar table, and into that bowl another poured clear water from a glass flagon. Davos understood at once. A blood test, plain for any to witness. Cut the boy king's palm, let his blood swirl in the water. If it darkened brown, as Baratheon blood was said to darken when touched by certain reagents prepared by Septon alchemists, then he was true. If it turned pale gold, lion blood would stand revealed. The notion had long been rumor, a trick of the faith from centuries past, half forgotten. Yet here it glimmered ready to convict or absolve before thousands. Courage pricked Davos's skin. City folk gathered in swarming knots. Mothers balanced babes upon shoulders so they might see the king pray. Beggars jostled with fishwives. Hedgehog peddlers hawked sticks of fruit jam. A pair of silent sisters pressed near the dais, hoods low. The heat of bodies made breath stifling. Davos wedged himself behind a barrel-chested mason, trusting his height to conceal Davos's shorter frame. From there, he possessed a narrow view up the wide marble steps. The September's doors swung inward at last. First emerged 24 rainbow-cloaked poor fellows bearing long spears argent-tipped. Their armor looked new-forged, their cloaks unfrayed. Davos realized the High Septon must have armed them in the night, resurrecting the faithful guard abolished over a century past. A murmur rose around him. The poor fellows walked again. For small folk who had prayed through years of war and rapine, that sight alone was miracle. Behind the spears strode the most devout in order of seniority, each wearing 7-pointed stars sewn with seed pearls across stiff brocade. One old man leaned on a rod of carved weirwood. Another bore a heavy tome of holy law. At their center glided the High Septon, orb cradled at his breast, face grave. Sunbeams crowned him. A hush fell across the square as though the father himself surveyed his children. Then trumpets cried from somewhere above, a note bright yet harsh. The crowd turned as the Red Keep's main gate flung wide. Down the King's Way clattered a retinue in glittering columns. The King's Guard in white enameled plate, Lannister outriders with lion banners snapping, and in a gem-studded litter borne by 4 tall men reclined the Queen Regent, Cersei Lannister. Her flowing gown of emerald and cloth of gold shimmered, her hair a molten cascade even under daylight's unflattering white. Beside the litter rode Prince Tommen astride a sturdy gelding, cheeks flushed with excitement. At his side clanked Ser Meryn Trant, sword loose in scabbard. There was no sign of King Joffrey. Davos's brows knit. Had the lioness refused to bring the principal in question? That would speak volumes. But before he could ponder further, the High Septon descended 3 steps and raised his orb. His voice carried surprising force. "Be welcome, good Queen Regent, and thou noble prince of the realm. The 7 beam gladness upon this blessed union of crown and faith. Today we gather in humility, that all may rejoice in certainty of lineage and avert the snares of gossip." He paused, letting silence breathe. Davos saw Cersei's green eyes narrow though her lips curved sweetly. She inclined her head. "The faith's goodwill honors the Iron Throne," she answered, voice loud enough to drift across the square. "My son Joffrey sits unassailable by both gods and men. Yet rumor festers like plague, so we have come to cure it once and forever." She signaled. A pair of gold cloaks dragged forward a gaunt man with ink-stained fingers, the scribe Davos had seen in the wine sink. His mouth was gagged, cheeks bruised. "This traitor," Cersei proclaimed, "confessed to forging lies onto parchment, sealing false words beneath my late lord husband's sigil. He shall face the father's justice for forgery and sedition." A hiss rippled across assembled commoners. Davos clenched teeth. The Queen meant to discredit the documents by parading a scapegoat, but the High Septon betrayed no alarm. "We will hear all testimonies in due course," he replied, stepping aside as poor fellows guided the scribe toward a position before the dais. 2 rainbow guards crossed spears behind him. Cersei's litter was lowered. She stepped out gracefully, one hand resting upon Tommen's shoulder. When she reached the first step, she halted. "Where is his grace?" the Septon asked. "For it is King Joffrey's blood the faith would bless." "My son ward late at arms practice," Cersei said smoothly. "He rests now. Should the father require more than a king's sworn mother and his trueborn brother to attest his line, I shall send for him after luncheon." The crowd whispered. Mothers nudged children. Hedge knights shook heads. The High Septon folded his hands. "The blessing pertains to he who reigns. Bring the king hence, I pray you. Delay lends rumor weight." Cersei's green eyes flared. "Your Holiness, the king obeys none save the gods and his mother. I am present. Prince Tommen is present. What further?" She lifted her chin. "Convene your test. Let my younger son's blood prove the line if you must." Davos recognized the gambit. Tommen was but 9, still shy of puberty. His hair, though golden, might darken with age. And if some alchemical reagent based on iron content misread his youthful blood, confusion could invite endless debate, enough to muddy waters until war concluded. Yet the Septon nodded. "As the mother wills. Step forward, my prince." Tommen dismounted, guided by Ser Meryn. He climbed atop the dais. A murmuring hush tremored among onlookers, curiosity laced with pity for the sweet boy. The basin gleamed like new-forged silver. A white-robed acolyte bore a thin knife of crystalline obsidian. Its edge flashed a rainbow as it kissed sunlight. Tommen's eyes widened. He looked to his mother. She smiled reassuringly. He extended his left hand. The acolyte took it gently, murmured blessing, then drew a shallow slice across the pad of Tommen's thumb. Crimson welled, a bead perfect as garnet. Gasp sound as droplets slipped into the basin's clear water. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then the crimson threads dispersed, swirling. Yet as they stretched outward, their hue lightened, not to brown, as Davos expected of Baratheon blood, but to a faint orange-amber that caught sunlight and seemed almost golden. A hush fell so deep Davos heard his own heartbeat. The basin's surface quivered, ripples carrying that strange amber glow. A murmur erupted like thunder. "Lion's blood!" someone shouted. "Bastard!" cried another. Cersei's voice slashed the uproar. "Alchemic trickery!" She strode forward, seized the basin, and hurled its contents across the dais, staining white marble with diluted pink. These false fellows poisoned faith with base metals. Seized the Septon. Chaos blossomed. Gold cloaks surged up steps. Poor fellows locked spears. Swords clanged. Marble rang to boot and bone. The High Septon retreated 2 paces, arms outspread. Peace! The 7 demand peace. But Lannister outriders already drew bows, arrows aimed at rainbow cloaks. Someone loosed first. A poor fellow stumbled, spouting blood. A scream tore from a septa in the crowd, and panic stampede began. Mothers dragged children. Peddlers dropped baskets. Stampede toppled benches. Davos's barrel-chested cover pushed past, knocking Davos against a pillar. Ser Maren Trant hustled Tommen down steps behind a shield wall of Kingsguard, even as 2 poor fellows barred the path. Steel rang upon steel.
Stand azide. Ser Merin Beyoved.
When they did not, he cut one through collarbone. The second thrust but missed, then fell beneath a gold-cloak's halberd. Through the melee Cersei advanced on the High Septon, rage blazing. "Traitor in cloth of silver," she spat. "You break oath and sacrament." The Septon met her fury with steely calm. "My vows bind me to truth." He turned, called to his devout. "Ring the Sanctus bell. Call all faithful to defend the Father's justice." From within the September bells boomed anew, deeper than before, vibrating stone. Doors burst open and more poor fellows poured forth. Twice as many as earlier, some wielding rusty scythes, others cudgels. Among them hobbled elder Septons arming boys little older than squires. Davos recognized a battle no swordsman could tame. Only wildfire of hearts now burned. He slipped sideways through throngs, dodging panicked maidens, stepping over a fallen peddler whose throat gushed red. In his peripheral, he glimpsed gold on crimson banners jerking backward toward the King's Gate. Lannister guards executing a fighting retreat while shielding Tommen and the Queen. Poor fellows pursued, harrying with spear butts, plucking arrows from corpses to fling like darts. Above, the High Septon still stood upon the dais, orb clutched high as though to command thunderbolts. Davos's smuggler's instinct screamed, "Get clear before the mob's frenzy turned on any stranger." He dodged into a narrow wind clogged with overturned carts, following memory of city map. Once beyond Temple District, he could vanish among dockside warrens, maybe slip across to the Blackwater again. Yet halfway down the wind, a cry halted him. The gagged scribe, Cersei's scapegoat, staggered from an alcove, bonds half cut, face bleeding. "Ser, Ser," he rasped when he saw Davos. "You carry the 7-pointed star. Help me." Davos's first reflex was flight, harbor no passengers. But the man's wrists chafed raw, his eyes wild with fear. "If they find me," he gibbered, "they'll prove me forger, hang me." Truth twanged inside Davos like plucked lute-string. This poor scribe had only repeated rumors overheard. The Queen's men would kill him to bury evidence of their forgery claim. Davos cursed softly, stepped to cut the last rope with his dagger. "Come," but moved silent. They threaded alleys thick with smoke, from what source Davos feared to guess. With each corner they glimpsed new riots. gold cloaks battering shop doors to seize hiding poor fellows, rioters overturning a lion sigil carriage, septons in torn robes leading prayer inside a burned stable. The city fractured along fissures of faith and power in the span of an hour. Near the river Davos led the scribe through an arcade where colored glass windows cast shards of violet and rose across cracked flagstone. There, a trio of gold cloaks blocked the arch ahead, cudgels dripping. One recognized Davos's burlap. "Here's another of them Sept trash," he snarled. Davos brandished his dagger, feinting low, but these were not green recruits. They advanced as one. Fight would be death. He grabbed the scribe's sleeve, pivoted down a side passage. Somewhere a bell tower collapsed with distant rumble, dust curling skyward. They found brief refuge in a tannery shed, gagging upon ammonia stink. Davos rifled crates, found a bundle of low-born garb, patched trousers, hooded doublet, half-boots stiff with dried lard. "Change," he ordered. The scribe obeyed while Davos scrubbed both their faces with rancid tallow, darkening complexions. Smell would mask them better than disguise. "I'm Cobrin," the man muttered, nerves raw. "Davos." He offered no rank. "We go to the river. I have a boat." "The king's men will close the river soon," Cobrin fretted. "Then we outpace them." They slipped again into daylight, now dappled under thick smoke haze from burning carts. Davos kept to rear lanes until the reek of fish announced proximity to the docks. Here pandemonium reigned. Small cogs cast off without cargo or crew to avoid being commandeered. Wharf hands brawled gold cloaks over barrels of salt beef. A dead man lay face down, the crab tattoo of a stevedore visible on his neck. Davos spotted his skiff bobbing where he'd moored it. Miracle it had not been stolen. He shoved Cobrin ahead. "Board quick. No talk." He cut the mooring line with one swipe, took oars, and shoved from the pier just as two watchmen rounded a stack of net boxes shouting. A thrown spear splashed wide. Another struck the stern but skittered off. Davos bent to the oars, muscles screaming but memory guiding each stroke. The Blackwater's brackish tug greeted him like old friend. Mid-channel they shipped oars and unfurled a dingy sail. Wind from sea filled it, carrying them southeast. Only then did Davos dare turn back. Smoke now billowed from Baylor Square. Flames licked lower domes. Bells rang still, but here on water they sounded forlorn, as though a giant wept inside stone. He could not know if the High Septon lived, nor whether Stannis's cause now flourished or floundered. But seeds of doubt had been sown before thousands. Lions might trample sprouts yet, but truth had cracked the paving stones. Cobrin hugged knees, rocking. "Where will we go?" "Dragonstone first," Davos answered. "My king must hear. After that, wherever the realm sails." "They'll name you Kinslayer of Kings," Cobrin whispered. "The queen will blame you for every death this day." Davos's throat tightened. "I lost 4 sons on the Blackwater to the queen's wildfire. Today I spared a boy and a scribe. Let them spin lies. I have truth for my pillow." Wind snapped canvas. The late-day sun painted red keeps towers crimson indeed, as if prophesying new rivers of blood. Yet beyond, the sky burned blue, and Davos imagined the fury of Stannis cleaving that blue soon, penance whipping. Perhaps the Stormlands would rouse. Perhaps Renly's old bannermen would see lion lies and come to their rightful king at last. He set course along the coast, hugging shallows to avoid patrol galleys. Behind them, King's Landing receded into haze, its distant roar fading. But the tale born this morning would ride faster than any war galley, borne by fleeing pill. Grimps, by barefoot orphans, by merchants eager to shift loyalties. And in each retelling, the color of Tommen's blood would deepen from amber to pure gold, and the High Septon's accusation would sharpen until it cut through denial. Night fell swift, stars pricked heavens. Cobrin slept curled under sailcloth, spent. Davos alone kept watch, tiller rope rough in hand. He thought of Stannis's stern face softening perhaps by a fraction when Davos delivered proof. He pictured the righteous fire that would blaze in those blue-gray eyes. A king must act when gods had spoken so plainly. War would spread anew, but this time not for rumor but for justice. Yet beneath the swell of hope lay ache. For the dead poor fellows, for mothers crushed in the stampede, for Tommen Baratheon, no Tommen Lannister, whose small hand would bear a scar that outlived innocence. Davos wondered whether he himself had done right. But sometimes truth itself was a sword. Draw it, and blood must follow. He prayed the mother might cradle those slain, and the smith forge new peace from shards left behind. Hours passed. The skiff skimmed black water under waxing moon. At times, Davos glimpsed other sails on the horizon. Perhaps fleeing nobles, perhaps patrols in lion colors hunting him. He kept to shadow, trimming sail low. In silence he rehearsed words for Stannis. How gold bled from princely veins, how the High Septon defied lions, how riot and flame swept Baelor Square. He would confess the cost, innocence trampled, and ask his king to temper iron justice with mercy once the throne was his. Near dawn a seabird cried overhead. Coastline cliffs loomed starboard. They had reached the mark where a hidden cove cut deep inside cliffside. Davos knew it well. Smugglers called it the spider's mouth. He angled sail, guiding skiff into twisting channel. Qhobarn woke, rubbing eyes. "Dragonstone?" he asked. "Soon," Davos promised. He would stash the scribe in safety among king's men loyal to the true cause, then seek audience. Yet as vessel nosed into calmer lagoon, torchlight flickered at water's edge. Unmistakable 2-3 points. Davos's stomach dropped. Had lion scouts outpaced him? A voice rang from shore, low yet ringing across still water. "Lord Seaworth, be at ease." It was a woman's voice, cultured, hard. Davos recognized Lady Melisandre before he saw her silhouette. The Red Woman. She stood upon rock wearing scarlet flowing robes, a lantern in each hand so flames framed her like wings of fire. Behind her waited half a dozen guards in the crowned stag of Stannis. Qhobarn shivered. "Shadow Witch," he whispered. Davos set jaw, guiding skiff toward her. Suspicion coiled within. Melisandre's influence over Stannis chilled him. But if she awaited him, perhaps the king already knew something. He shipped sail, drifted until hull kissed soft sand. Melisandre's eyes burned black in lantern fire. "Ser Davos," she greeted, omitting his lesser title. "Lord of the Light brought you safely." He clambered out, boots sinking. "The Seven guided my path," he replied stubbornly. She inclined head, unconcerned. "Truth and light serve one master. Come. Lord Stannis desires your counsel at once." Her gaze flicked to Qhobarn. "And this, a witness to Queen's deceit," Davos said. "He must be protected," she gestured. Guards escorted Qhobarn aside without roughness. "All who serve truth dwell under Lawloress flame," she said. Davos followed her up narrow stone stairpath carved in cliff, lantern flare painting steps with serpent tongues. "News travels swift on wind of fire," Melisandre remarked. "I beheld a vision this night. Lions roared amid shattered stone, blood golden in a silver bowl. Your actions please the Lord of Light." Davos frowned. "If gods find pleasure in riot, my understanding differs." She smiled. "Fire cleanses." But before he could retort, they emerged onto the ridge where a horse waited. She motioned him to mount. "Ride. The King's War Council convenes at break of day." Hoofs thundered along cliff track. In pale dawn, Dragonstone's towers speared sky like talons. Smoke curled from Maester's chimneys. Sentries hailed them. Davos's heart pounded, not just from ride but from dread. He bore proof enough to ignite all Westeros. Would Stannis wield it wisely, or would Melisandre fan its sparks into pyre? In the stone drum's council chamber, torches blazed while shutters barred the sea wind. Stannis Baratheon stood bent over map boards scattered with wooden stags and crowned lions. Lord Davos had expected others, Ser Axel Florent, Ser Richard Horp, but only the king and Maester Pylus attended. Both looked weary. "Davos," Stannis greeted, voice rough. "You bring tidings?" Davos knelt swiftly. "Aye, your grace. proof of the bastardy of Joffrey and his siblings. I placed it in the High Septon's hands before the eyes of the realm. Blood test upon Prince Tommen turned the city. Stannis's fist clenched on the edge of map. And the boy king? Not present. His mother attempted subterfuge. Riots erupted. The faithful and Goldcloaks clash even now. We slipped the city by water. Pylus exhaled. Reports reached hours ago of unrest, but no details. Davos produced a crumpled scrap he had salvaged from his jerkin. A copy of the nurse's deposition he'd kept as insurance. Stannis snatched it, read quickly. His eyes flared with cold fire. They will claim forgery, Davos warned. But thousands saw the blood reveal false color. The High Septon stands defiant, though I fear for his life. Stannis tossed parchment on table. A life worth a kingdom. The seven themselves proclaim my right. He straightened, shoulders squared. Pylus, ink and quill. I ride for Storm's End, for Tarth, for every holdfast that still honors oath. They shall raise banners once they hear. And King's Landing's chaos? Davos asked. Stannis's gaze burned northward toward unseen city. Let lions choke on their lies. I will come with sword and justice. Within a moon's turn, the Iron Throne will know its rightful king. Melisandre stepped from shadows behind Brazier. Your path blazes, your grace, yet the darkness gathers. The lion's roar is not the deepest shadow behind the throne. Stannis's jaw flexed. Speak plainly. She inclined head. Another false king stirs in the storm. Renly is dead, Stannis growled. Not Renly, she corrected softly. The boy of salt and smoke. Davos's thoughts darted to Slint's rumors of Bastard of Dragonstone, to Mance's old tales of blackened towers, but Stannis waved her off. I will face any pretender after lions, not before. Melisandre's ruby glowed as though pulsing heartbeat. As you command, your grace. The king turned back to Davos. You sailed swift as rumor smuggler. For this you shall command our fleet when we retake the Blackwater. Davos's throat tightened. I am no admiral. You are honest, Stannis replied, and the realm has too many lords skilled at lies. Davos bowed head. I will serve, yet unease coiled within. Honest he might be, but war required more than truth. It demanded breath of thousands who would die when he gave order. The mother have mercy. Maester Pylus began drafting summons. Runners would carry them to Rainhouse, Nightsong, Evenfall, and beyond. Call of the true king, proof enclosed. Stannis strode from the chamber to ready Garrons for the road south. Davos lingered by Brazier a moment. Melisandre met his eyes. Flame reflected infinite in black. You doubt, she murmured. I fear, Davos answered. Fear that justice and slaughter walk hand in hand. Fire burns, she said, but from ash, new life springs. Trust the light. He left her to the flames. Outside, dawn's red fingers crawled up the sky. Waves battered Dragonstone's basalt feet. Davos inhaled salt wind, tasting both promise and peril. Somewhere beyond horizon, Cersei Lannister cradled a wounded son. The High Septon perhaps lay dead or triumphant, and the small folk whispered of golden blood. The realm had shifted, though history might wait years to mark the pivot. He descended to the yard where sailors readied the galley's Fury and Lady Maria. Men hailed him as lord, yet he felt only the weight of parchment ghosts upon his shoulders. Cobran sat on a coil of rope, new-shaven, clothed in stag black. He looked lost. Davos laid a hand on his shoulder. You spoke truth, he said. Now help us right it. Cobran managed a frail nod. Trumpets blew from the drum's heights. Horses neighed. Banners unfurled. The crowned stag on fiery field, gold against deep black. And upon the highest spar Melisandre's followers raised a banner of their own. A heart aflame, set with the fiery stag inside. Davos watched it ripple, uncertain whether to feel hope or dread. By midday Stannis and 500 riders thundered across the causeway toward the King's Road. Fleet oars dipped to ready. Davos would follow soon, once tide turned. He lingered a moment longer upon the quay, staring east toward faint smoke plume marking King's Landing. The war had begun anew, born not of ambition but of truth's cruel light. Whether that light would guide or blind them all, only the gods, Seven, Red, or Stranger, could say. But Davos Seaworth would steer by it nonetheless, for he had paid in blood and fear to kindle it. He touched the pouch at his belt, where a sliver of parchment remained, ink blurred yet legible. Robert Baratheon, true-born son of Steffan, acknowledges. He closed the pouch. When next he faced the Red Keep's ochre walls, he would carry not rumor nor confession, but sword and fleet behind a king who could no longer be denied. Wind ruffled his hair. "Mother," he whispered, "guide my hand. Warrior, guard my men. Father, judge us just." Then Davos Seaworth, smuggler knight and bearer of truth, turned from sea to ship, ready to chart the storm that would remake the realm. PGSQL. Wind whispered like a conspirator through Dragonstone's arrow slits, carrying brine and the distant thump of waves against black basalt. Davos Seaworth stood upon the castle's sea wall, gaze fixed on the orange glow staining the eastern horizon. King's Landing still smoldering, though 100 miles distant. The memory of riot haunted him. The boy Tommen's blood blooming gold, the queen's scream, the rush of spears. Yet dawn's hush here felt too serene, like the moment before a hurricane's eye returns with twice its fury. Below, on the inner ward, 100 sailors loaded hardtack and salted beef onto the Fury, Stannis' flagship. The smell of pitch filled the air as carpenters hammered last repairs to hulls damaged in their rout months earlier. Now those ships would return to the Blackwater, but this time stout-hearted men believed gods favored them. They saluted Davos as he paced the ramparts. Peasants once, now soldiers of a cause sanctified by flame and faith alike. Melisandre emerged from a postern stair, crimson skirts trailing. Dawn light danced across the ruby at her throat, making it pulse as if alive. "You brood, Lord Davos," she said. "The Lord of Light shows victory, yet your heart clings to shadows." "Victory's path is paved in corpses," he answered without turning. "Small folk trampled on Baelor's steps. Poor fellows bled on marble. The Seven may forgive. I struggle." She approached the parapet, slender hands curling upon chilled stone. "The dead are lanterns lighting the living's way," she murmured. "You lit a bonfire of truth. Now Stannis will seize the realm." Davos faced her at last. "Truth alone may topple a throne, but justice must build what follows. Teach me how burning men alive serves justice." Melisandre's eyes shimmered black. "When storm's end falls, you will see. The fires within its heart forge a new world." He scowled. "You speak riddles, and you cling to salt and smoke, yet fear flame." She laid 2 fingers against his burned knuckles. "Lawler tests you, Onion Knight. Stand firm." Then she turned in silence, descending like a streak of living ember. Trumpets chiseled the quiet. Captain Roland Storm strode beneath the barbican, golden-crowned stag upon his cloak. "Lord Davos," he called, "the king summons you to council. Sail at ebb tide." Davos followed him to the chamber of the painted table, where Westeros sprawled in warped green beneath flickering torches. Stannis stood at the table's edge, fists planted atop the reach, brow furrowed. Beside him loomed Ser Brian Ferring, Lord Corlys Penny, and Maester Pylus. A roll of parchment lay open, scored with fresh seals. Storm's End, Tarth, Night Song, and 3 lesser houses of the Rainwood, all answering Stannis' summons, though with fewer swords than hoped. "Gullet remains barred," Pylus reported, tapping ships inked near Blackwater Bay. "But charters from Honeyholt say the Goldcloaks in the city fight each other by night. The small folk rally behind the Seven. The High Septon still breathes." "And Tywin?" Stannis snapped. "Racing south from the Trident," Ser Brian said. 12,000, so spies say. Stannis' face hardened. "We sail within the hour. Fury north, Lady Maria and Devotion flanking. Davos will command the van." Davos placed a finger upon the map at the mouth of the Wendwater. "Lord Tyrell holds most of the reach. Red wine galleys still blockade the straits. If we force Blackwater too soon, we risk lions at our prow and grapes at our stern. Stannis's eyes glinted. I will not wait while Cersei spins new deceit. Each day gives her time to forge alliances. He jabbed finger at King's Landing. Truth favors the blade drawn swiftly. Davos bowed. Then give me 2 days to take Storm's End. This garrison wavers, wary of the Queen's lie. With the castle ours, we gain grain and a bastion on Tyrell's flank. Storm lords will rally, and Redwine may balk at attacking his cousin's stronghold. Silence settled. Torches hissed. Stannis's jaw worked. Davos felt gaze of others, some disdainful. A low-born knight schooling a king in war. Yet Stannis trusted Davos's counsel as he trusted few. At last he nodded. 2 days. No more. Bring me Storm's End, and the fleet sails upon the dawn after. 30 leagues southwest, Storm's End rose from sea-swept crag like a fist of pale granite, massive walls defying wave and wind. Beneath its battlements, tents of House Morrigan, Estermont, and Cairn fluttered half-heartedly. Loyal to Stannis once, then Renly, then relegated to biding. News of Joffrey's bastardy hit those camps like thunder over Shipbreaker Bay. Oaths shattered, alliances cracked, and now they contemplated another turn of cloak. Davos landed with 300 oarsmen and a score of archers, all wearing plain coats to conceal allegiance. A narrow strand at low tide granted access to Postern Gate, still unmended since Robert's rebellion. From a distance, Storm's End looked impregnable. But Davos had once climbed its cliff in dark to smuggle onions and salt fish. He knew every nook. Fog blanketed shore at dawn. Davos's men hefted grapnels, ropes muffled in sailcloth. As gulls cried overhead, they crept across weed-slick rocks. Above, sentries paced, but watch had grown lax. War on a dozen fronts did that. Davos led, hands steady despite heart's drumbeat. He cast first hook, its claws biting stone. Rope taut, he ascended hand over hand, boots seeking footholds worn by centuries of storms. Behind him, men followed silent. Midway, a pebble tumbled. He froze, breath held. No shout came. Wind howled, masking their climb. The gate tower loomed, arrow loops black mouths. He reached parapet rim, swung over, crouched in shadow. 2 guards slouched by brazier, dicing. Davos signaled. A sharp jerk of hand. Barrett, a fisherman near as silent as tide, darted forward, cudgel cracking skull. Second guard wheeled, mouth open. An arrow hissed, thunked through throat. He fell without sound deeper than gurgle. Davos winced but did not pause. They unbarred a sally port. Captain Roland and more men poured through, swift as tide. Within minutes the postern tower lay theirs. Horns within castle blared, but too late. Davos's men seized inner courtyard gate winch, cranking chains until portcullis rattled high. Outside, ragged banners of Switch Allegiance stormlords advanced under truce, now welcomed inside by Onion Knights daring. Within an hour, Storm's End's castellan, a gaunt knight named Ser Garland Wild, knelt before Davos and Captain Storm. "The garrison will bend," he said, voice hollow. The realm turned upside down again. Davos raised him. "Swear to King Stannis, rightful under gods and men, and your house keeps its honor." Ser Garland did. Bells pealed across ramparts. Another fortress reclaimed. Grain stores, long dwindled, still filled 2 cellars thanks to Tyrell reluctance to starve their own kin. Barrels of pickled fruit, casks of Dornish red left from Renly's court. Davos ordered them tallied. But his gaze lingered on the castle's great hall, where painted sigils of Storm Kings watched. Here Robert had planned his rebellion. Here Davos had once kneeled for the gift and loss of fingers. Memory stung, yet no time for nostalgia. He penned Raven to Stannis. Storm's End ours. Lords Cairn, Estermont, and Penrose sworn anew. Redwine sails still at anchor off the arbor. Signal uncertain. Await your banner. He sealed it with onion and crescent sigil, dispatching bird north. King's Landing festered. 3 days after the riot, Charred corpses still littered Baelor Square. The High Septon, cloistered in Baelor September, refused audiences, guarded by a swelling host of poor fellows and pious small folk. His sermons, shouted from shattered balcony, named Joffrey false-born abomination, and urged lords to seat the righteous king revealed by the seventh sign. Each proclamation drew more converts, their ragged ranks armed with farm tools. Within the Red Keep, Queen Cersei raged like trapped wildfire. Tommen wept nightly, haunted by visions of sliced flesh and blood turned strange. Joffrey, pride stung, demanded the heads of every septon in the city, but Pycelle cautioned that killing priests while lords marched might summon the wrath of faith militant resurrected. Lord Tywin's outriders reached the city gates by dusk of the third day. He entered the keep at a stride, silver mane loose. In council chamber stained with smoke, he confronted his daughter. "You let peddlers of lies seize the faith," he said coldly. "They used alchemy, father, a trick." Tywin lifted brow. "Then we must prove it so. Produce the alchemist, the substance, replicate result with Baratheon blood." Pycelle quavered. The reagents were lost when the basin spilled. Tywin's nostrils flared. "Find new." His gaze swept chamber. Qyburn, Varys, calm as ever. Mace Tyrell newly arrived with token levies, and Orain Waters with the royal fleet. Until then, rumor outweighs truth. The realm smells weakness and will pounce. He turned to Joffrey. "You will ride to Baelor September tomorrow at dawn. Bareheaded, humble. Kneel before the altar and offer your own blood for blessing." Publicly, Joffrey sputtered. "I will not. Why must I prove what all know?" Tywin's voice cut ice. "Because the mob doubts. A king who hides invites headsman's sword." Cersei swore she would never allow it, but Tywin's stare hardened. "The gods' test will show crimson as any man's. We will prepare a Baratheon cousin as witness, Ser Edric Storm, perhaps. The color will match." Varys spoke softly. "Ser Edric was smuggled south to Starfall by Lord Stannis weeks ago, my lord." Tywin's knuckles whitened. "Then find another." On the march north from Storm's End, Stannis met riders bearing Davos's raven. He read, features granite, then allowed himself a tight nod. "Well done." He ordered horns blown. Banners festooned the column, hearts rekindled. Through rain-lashed woods they advanced, 40 miles in one day, halting only at dusk's violet hush. That night, Davos sat with his king near crackling fire beneath canvas awning. Rain pattered like 1,000 tiny drums. Stannis pored over fresh letters. "Tarly's strength holds at Horn Hill but waits Tyrell's signal. Redwine galleys unmoved. Lord Costane offers neutrality if left unmolested. And..." He tapped a sealed scroll. "Bravos offers gold if I honor debts of preceding kings." Davos sipped watered wine. "Coins follow certainty. Victory weights scales heavier than promises." Stannis stared into flames. In the city, Tywin will parade that whelp of his before the sept. Cut, let crimson spill. The mob will cheer and call our proof false. Davos's thoughts drifted to Melisandre's cryptic warning of deeper shadow. "Then we must bring stronger witness than blood. The nurse who suckled Myrcella, the master of coin who kept Robert's ledgers. Bring them atop the city walls." Stannis's eyes narrowed. "And Tywin will string them before we arrive. No, war will settle truth." He rose suddenly. "Melisandre!" he barked beyond flap. She glided in, crimson damp with rain. "Show the night," he ordered. The red woman knelt beside fire, lips moving in guttural tongue. She cast a handful of black powder upon coals. Flames leapt green, then purple. Within roaring heart shapes coalesced. A towering lion robed in crimson, dragging a bleeding stag. But above, a shadow of a stag aflame loomed, antlers branching into swords. The lion crumbled to ash. Soldiers gasped. Davos felt chill. Stannis watched impassive, but eyes reflected flicker. "The Lord of Light shows victory," Melisandre whispered. "Only the boy of shadow remains." Stannis dismissed her. When she left, flames dulled. He turned to Davos. Dragonstone's mine. Storm's End is mine. Tomorrow we press to the Windwater, then strike Blackwater by both river and road. You sail with fleet. I lead foot. Davos bowed. Worry gnawed. Winter storms? Tyrell host? Cersei's cunning. But no turning back. On Dragonstone's docks the following dawn, galleys unfurled striped sails of black and gold. The Fury led, her carved stag prow dancing on swell. Davos stood at quarterdeck, wind whipping gray beard. Across gunnels, men rubbed charms. Onion carved of driftwood, carved 7-point stars, fiery hearts. Faiths mingled like waves. As sun climbed, fleet caught favorable wind. By dusk they rounded Massey's hook, slipping into night's cloak. Rowers muffled oars, lanterns hooded. Davos meant to enter the Blackwater under moonless sky. Beach men below the city's southern quays, meet Stannis' infantry at Mud Gate. But at midnight, sails blotched the horizon ahead, dozens, backlit by faint city glow. Davos's first mate squinted. Red wine colors? Davos's heart sank. Tyrell fleet had moved at last, linking with Goldcloak's ships. He signaled halt, letting galleys drift. He paced deck, mind racing. Engage risked losing fleet before troops ashore. Retreat squandered element of surprise and ceded morale. He ordered lanterns shuttered, rowers silent. He conferred with captains by whisper across chained boats. Plan formed. Slip past enemy line near southern shore where currents tricky. Oars only, sails furled. Ships would move as ghosts. For 2 hours they edged west, hugging coast where shoals threatened. Davos navigated by stars and memory of depth. The Lady Maria grazed a reef, timbers groaning but held. A patrol galley passed within bowshot, lanterns bright. Men held breath. Waves slapped hulls softly. Patrol moved on. Davos exhaled. At last the Blackwater mouth opened. A black mirror. Far upriver, the city burned red like a brazier. Fury led into channel. But as they rowed, faint plunk drifted across water, oars behind. Davos's pulse hammered. He peered. Shapes emerged. 5, 10, 20 smaller boats. Fast. Patrol had sighted them after all. Battle stations, he hissed. Archers knocked arrows, smeared with pitch, lit at braziers. Davos had no wildfire, but fire arrows could hinder. He let the enemy close until 50 yards, then ordered volley. A hiss of shafts soared, trailing sparks. 2 patrol boats burst aflame, their tarred hulls eager tinder. Screams echoed, others scattered, crashing oars. Davos pressed rowers to full speed. Yet commotion roused larger warships anchored at river bends. Horns blew, lanterns flared. Davos saw hulking shapes pivot, sails slack but oars dropping. The Fury's ram would lose against heavier hulls. They needed shore now. Hard to starboard, he cried. Fury veered toward southern bank. Other galleys followed. They plowed through reeds, keels grinding mud. Gangplanks dropped. Men leapt into chest-deep water, wading ashore under arrow flight. 2 ships caught fire. Men floundered. Davos barked orders, rallying survivors. Beach turned chaos, but half the host gained land. From behind dunes rose a figure on horseback. King Stannis arrived with vanguard earlier than planned, having forced night march. He spurred forward, voice relentless. Form. Shields. Dawn crept as army assembled. 5,000 ragged but fierce. Across river, bells rang. City alert. Yet inside walls, the faithful riots still smoldered. Gold cloaks thinned by fighting knights could not man every tower. Stannis wasted no hour. He ordered trebuchets assembled with timber hauled on ox carts. Stones soon hurtled, smashing river gate. Davos oversaw archers pelting ramparts. Smoke from fires kindled inside city mingled with dawn haze. Within walls, Tywin had returned from war camp hours earlier, confronted with news of fleet's breach and Storm's End's fall. He found Joffrey trembling, Cersei pacing. When Maesters announced Stannis battering Rivergate, Tywin summoned his commanders. We hold the Red Keep at all cost. High tower, Tyrell, guard walls. Joffrey, you will ride the walls with hound to be seen, lest mob think you fled. Cersei protested, but Tywin's glare silenced her. At Baelor September, the High Septon took news as divine vindication. Poor fellows poured onto streets chanting for Stannis. They stormed the granaries, distributing bread. Gold cloaks sent to quell them turned cloaks, joining rebels after priests vowed absolution. The city had become 3 beasts: Lion, Flameheart, and 7-pointed Star, each biting others. Davos led a force under Mudgate portcullis once chains snapped after hours of battering. They pushed into Fishmonger's Square, fighting goldcloaks who surrendered more readily than fought. He saw corpses wrapped in Septon robes lining gutters. Atop a half-collapsed inn, he planted a black stag banner. Cheers from small folk rose. "King Stannis!" they cried. The cry spread like wildfire, not of green but of tongue. Davos pressed forward, securing each street with minimal blood where possible. Yet near the Great September, resistance stiffened. Lannister crossbowmen barricaded Olive Way, protecting route to Red Keep. Arrows rained. Davos ducked behind overturned cart. He spotted standard-bearer, a knight in gilded armor, Ser Osmond Kettleblack. Davos whistled to 2 archers. They loosed shafts that clanged off gilding. Kettleblack laughed, charged. Davos braced, caught blow on shield. He riposted, slicing thigh. Knight toppled, wounded. Gold cloaks watching saw their champion fall. Some tossed helms and fled. The barricade crumbled. Bells suddenly rang new peal. Not temple bells, but tower at the Red Keep. A white banner with crimson lion lowered slowly, replaced by plain palecloth. Parley. Davos's men paused in wonder. Lord Tywin had weighed fates, with faith and populace against him. Fleet partly burned, and Tyrell uncertain. He chose gamble. Send envoys offering trial by combat to settle kingship. Joffrey would champion crown. Stannis to name his own. Winner to rule. Stannis scoffed upon hearing. "A child's game," he said. "My right needs no combat." He ordered advance. Yet Davos urged caution. Civil war overall might abate if single duel prevented slaughter. Stannis snarled but allowed Davos to meet envoys at Cobbler's Bridge. There, Ser Kevin Lannister parleyed. King Joffrey consents to cut his palm before the 7 once more, in neutral witness of martels and errands, if your king accepts champion's duel afterward. Davos studied Ser Kevin's lined face. Desperation lurked. Tywin's power waned. "Why should we trust lion alchemy this time?" Davos asked. "Because we will conduct test under daylight in the dragon pit, thousands watching," Kevin said. "Your red priestess may attend." Word of duel spread swift. Small folk pressed every window. Knights on both sides buzzed. High Septon sent blessing for single combat, quoting Maegor's precedents. At council that night, Stannis faced divisions. Melisandre urged fire and sword. Maester Pylus and Davos argued for duel. Loss risked all, but victory might end war at cost of a single life. Stannis' stern eyes fixed on Davos. "Would you stake realm on sword arm of one man?" "On truth," Davos replied, "but choose champion wisely." Many expected Stannis to name Lord Robert's bastard, Edric Storm, if he could be found, or perhaps Ser Brian Faring. But at dawn on the day of Dragon Pit, Stannis surprised allies. He named Ser Garland Cairn, seasoned knight of marches, known for unmatchable longsword skill. Joffrey, however, insisted on fighting himself, brandishing Heart Eater. The Dragon Pit, ruined bones of ancient dragons arching overhead, filled with tens of thousands. Tier by tier, poor fellows, gold cloaks, Tyrell Levy, and Stormlanders packed in uneasy ceasefire. In center, a circle of sand raked clear awaited duel. High Septon, flanked by Melisandre and Maester Pylus, presided. 2 braziers burned, one of myrrh, one of stranger red resin Melisandre provided. Joffrey strode out, golden hair shining. He bled his palm over basin. Blood swirled brown, normal, not gold. Cheers from lions. Melisandre sniffed at basin, whispered to Septon. He permitted test repeated using Maester Pylus's reagents. Brown again. Davos's stomach twisted. Had earlier miracle been some trick of lighting? Or had Cersei replaced child? Yet Joffrey's arrogance bored into crowd. Stannis' champion entered wearing no plume, only rain-damp gray.
Ser Garlan Caron Nelt, Brad.
Then he rose, drew sword slender as dawn. Duel began with blare of horns. Joffrey, untested despite training, lunged wild. Karen parried, riposted, dancing. The Boy King's blows telegraphed. Crowd sensed mismatch. After 10 passes, sweat streaked Joffrey's brow beneath gilded helm. Breath ragged, he hacked clumsily. Karen sidestepped, tapped him with flat, mocking. Laughter from small folk rippled. Joffrey shrieked rage, charging. Karen fainted low, spun, pommel struck the boy's temple. Joffrey stumbled, dropped Heart Eater. In terror he scrambled. Duel demanded mercy only upon yield. Karen leveled blade. Yield, your grace. Joffrey looked toward grandstand where Cersei and Tywin sat, pale. Pride warred with fear. He spat, snatched dagger from boot, hurled it, glancing off Karen's breastplate. Dishonor roared louder than crowd. Karen's eyes hardened. He advanced. Suddenly, a crossbow twanged from stands. Bolt streaked, struck Karen's neck gap. Blood arced as he collapsed. Pandemonium erupted. Poor fellows shrieked treachery. Stormlanders roared murder. Goldcloaks ringed Joffrey, hustled him toward exits. Davos, watching beside Melisandre, felt bile rise. Treachery doomed peace. High Septon raised voice, condemning. Arrows flew. Riot blossomed anew. In chaos, Davos saw Melisandre's ruby blaze bright. She whispered incantation, and flames leapt from braziers high, swirling into fiery apparition of stag. Crowd gasped, some knelt, others fled. Across pit, Tywin's white stallion reared as flaming brand toppled near. Guards shielded him out, but moments' confusion allowed Stormlander line to surge, seizing vantage. Battle resumed within Dragonpit's confines. Steel on steel, holy men skewered, women trampled. Night descended before fighting ceased. Red Keep closed gates. Stannis withdrew forces to city's southern wards. Dragonpit burned, its specter lighting night sky. Karen's body laid on shield, borne into Stannis' camp. Davos knelt by corpse, grief and rage tangled. Champion slain by cowardice, duel void. Melisandre stepped near, eyes alight. The false king sheds faithful blood to prolong night. This sin opens door to shadow. Davos glared. Words will not raise Karen. She lowered voice. But king's blood spilt wrongfully empowers the flames. Lord of light bequeaths vengeance. Let me light Karen's pyre and call fire's judgment upon lion blood. Davos recoiled. No more burning men. Enough. He strode away toward Stannis' tent. Within, the king stared at map veined with new red strokes marking day's slaughter. He looked older, as though each lie lined his face deeper. Davos bowed, spoke softly. Treachery steals honor of duel. Yet people saw lion deceit. We hold southern districts, docks, and Storm's End behind. But Tyrell host closes. Stannis exhaled. I will storm the Red Keep before they arrive. Tomorrow night, secret sally through tunnels Maegor built. You will faint at gate of the gods, draw their steel. Davos's heart clenched. Risk high. Tunnels rumored haunted, some collapsed. Yet momentum demanded bold stroke. He nodded. Next night clouds thickened, masking three-quarter moon. Davos led 500 into alleys near the gate, drums thumping war rhythm. They battered oak with rams while shouting to the seven. Goldcloaks answered with arrows. Meanwhile, Melisandre guided Stannis, Ser Brian, and 200 picked men into catacombs beneath Sept of Rhaenys. Torches sputtered breath of tombs. Bats stirred. Creeping through twisting vaults, they neared secret stair rising into Red Keep cellars. Yet as they climbed, iron gate crashed down behind. They were trapped. Torchlight revealed armored forms emerging ahead. Gold lion helms. In lead strode Ser Jaime Lannister, white cloak stained with soot, golden sword gleaming. "Brother's judge comes early," he drawled. "Back alleys for back kings." Stannis advanced, sword Lightbringer blazing orange. Melisandre's enchantment made steel glow. "Kingslayer," he growled. "Step aside." Jaime smirked. "My sisters told me enough. I'll collect your head instead." Duel erupted. Sparks flew as Lightbringer met gilded blade. Jaime's skill legendary. Stannis bore raw strength and will. They circled in vaulted chamber while men clashed around. Davos, at gate, sensed no progress. Horns signaled retreat or triumph. He pressed assault harder. Beneath keep, Melisandre chanted, ruby blazing. Shadows writhed along walls. A shape coalesced behind Jaime, dark, tall, crowned with antlers. It mimicked Stannis' moves, lunged as Stannis fainted. Jaime glimpsed darkness too late. Shadow blade pierced his back between plates. He staggered, eyes wide. Stannis' physical sword slashed. Spilling golden hair darkened with blood. Kingslayer fell. Shock rippled. Lannister guards faltered. Stannis' men surged, slicing through. They reached inner stair, poured upward toward Hall of 100 Hearths. Yet alarm bells rang. Red cloaks poured from barracks, archers on balconies. Battle flared inside keep's marble guts. Outside, Davos's feint turned real as portcullis creaked, then broke under battering. His men flooded courtyard, meeting pockets of resistance.
Firent l'istable, smoke billowed, obscuring archer.
Davos fought side by side with sailors, blade flashing. Inside, Cersei fled with Tommen toward Maegor's holdfast. Tywin rallied remaining guards near throne room. Stannis cut a path, boots slipping in blood. Ahead, gleaming on dais, the Iron Throne crouched. He paused, almost mesmerized. His destiny inches away, but a groan behind drew his eyes. Jaime, not dead yet, dragged body, sneering. "Take it, usurper," he hissed, coughing blood. "It won't fill your emptiness." Stannis turned away, leaving Kingslayer to maesters. Duty first. Secure city. He ordered Ser Brian to seal holdfast, but Tywin's lions fought desperate. From windows, horns of Tyrell host sounded. They had reached river crossing. Morning's light would bring fresh foes. Davos met Stannis atop ramp leading to Maidenvault. Both blood-spattered. "Gate hours," Davos gasped. But Tyrell banners mass across Blackwater. Red wine galleys anchor. Stannis wiped sword on cloak. "We hold Red Keep, we hold city." At that moment, High Septon arrived with column of poor fellows. They bore lanterns, singing hymns. He approached king and knelt. "The seven anoint thee rightful king. The realm sees." He offered crown once Joffrey wore, found abandoned in the flight. Stannis stared at circlet of gold wrought with rubies. Slowly he took it, but did not place upon head. Instead he looked to Davos. "Have we earned it?" Davos met his gaze. "Earn it tomorrow when you spare those who yield." Tywin Lannister, cornered in Tower of the Hand, received word of Jaime gravely wounded and city half lost. He weighed cost. Dawn found him seeking parley beneath white flag. He offered surrender of throne in exchange for safe conduct of Cersei and children to Casterly Rock, Jaime's life spared, and retention of Westerland's titles. Stannis convened council in Torchlit Hall. Melisandre urged purge. High Septon counseled mercy to prove righteousness. Davos spoke last. "Lion cubs claw when cornered, but realm bleeds more if battle continues with Tyrell host outside. Accept surrender under conditions. Joffrey and Tommen to take Black. Cersei to silent sisterhood. Tywin to retire as Warden West, yield hostages." Stannis weighed. Lightbringer no longer glowed. In dawning day, sorcery waned. He turned to Septon. "Will faith support?" "If justice served," Septon affirmed. Stannis agreed. Tywin signed terms. At noon, Iron Throne Hall thronged with nobles, small folk representatives, and chanting Septons. Stannis seated upon throne for first time, crown set upon brow by High Septon. Davos stood at shoulder, onion sigil gleaming. Cheers thundered, mixing with distant campfires of Tyrell host now uncertain whom to fight. Yet victory wasn't unalloyed. Dragon Pit lay ruin, thousands dead. Jaime lingered near death, Karen slain. Shadow of Melisandre's magic cast long. Davos wondered what price realm would yet pay. Night descended on first day of Stannis' reign. Davos climbed to battlements, city restless but trembling toward peace. Bonfires celebrating rightful king, sept bells joyful. He watched stars shimmer above charred spires. Footsteps approached. Melisandre, robe fluttering. "It is done," she whispered. "Not done," Davos said. "Nights grow long still, and what of boy of salt and smoke?" Her smile was secretive, fulfilled. The false king born of incest, salt of tears, smoke of wildfire, has fallen. Another prophecy sealed. Davos stared over river where Tyrell campfires dwindled. Envoys negotiating fealty already. Maybe at last peace. But he could not forget shadow that felled Kingslayer. He prayed silently to mother and father that never again would realm need such darkness for light to shine. In silent pause, wind carried faint sound of waves, constant, eternal. He thought of his sons lost, of Karen's body on pyre, of innocent small folk trampled. Truth had won, but scars would linger. He vowed to serve king and realm so those scars might heal. Below, fires glimmered like 1,000 candles on a black altar. Above, waxing moon shone, unswayed by mortal wars. Davos pulled cloak tight, breathed salt tang, and turned toward stair. Work awaited. Ships to repair, laws to draft, hungry mouths to feed. The realm had new king, but needed better men still. He would be one. Far off, waves kept their tireless chant. Like onions in hold of desperate ship, like prayers whispered in storm. And Davos Seaworth, once smuggler, now hand of the king by decree signed hours earlier, descended to shape dawn from ashes, bearing the weight of crown he would never wear but ever shield. PGSQL. Gray dawn seeped across the sky like watered milk, leaching color from a city still trembling after conquest. In the shattered dragon pit, a pall of steam curled from last night's embers, carrying the sour scent of charred flesh and wet horsehair. Ravens circled broken rafters in lazy spirals, cawing at each other as though tallying the dead. Davos Seaworth strode through the ruins with cloak drawn tight against a salt-sharp wind that blew in from the Blackwater. A dozen Stormlander spearmen followed, kicking aside cracked skulls, stamping out residual sparks. Flickers of orange yet glowed beneath heaps of ash where dragon bones once loomed. The pyres Melisandre had lit for the fallen still smoldered, perfuming the air with cedar resin and cinnamon oil. The hand of the king paused before a charred beam that bore deep gouges, marks from one of the great chains that had toppled during last night's melee, crushing rebels and red cloaks alike. He knelt, pressing gloved fingers to a ribbon of dried blood, then rose and motioned the soldiers onward. All around lay the cost of shadow and flame, the limp body of a poor fellow draped in rainbow tatters, a golden helm split by mace blow, the half-melted breastplate of a Tyrell man-at-arms whose features were now a featureless mask of black glass. Ahead, near the high altar where once the dragons were exhibited, workmen labored to erect a rough platform of oak planks. Hammer blows rang like distant thunder. Davos climbed the steps to inspect. Carved into the foremost beam was a single phrase, "Truth Ascendant." The High Septon had ordered a new pulpit built here, in open sky amid these ruins, so none might again mistake marble walls or stained glass for the seat of the gods. He would deliver his next sermon in this place tomorrow, calling upon the realm to bend knee to King Stannis. Davos touched the carving with a sigh. Truth had ascended indeed, but its wings were barbed. The dead of Baelor Square, the butchered knights of the Dragon Pit, Ser Garland Cairn's noble head laid low by a treacherous quarrel. These were the feathers in its plumage. He prayed the mother might cradle them gently, even as he feared their ghosts would forever haunt the reign he had helped birth. Captain Roland Storm approached, helm tucked beneath his arm, scar-cheeked face grim. "My lord," he said, "the Tyrell camp sends word. Lord Mace requests audience at the Queen of Thorns Pavilion on the South Bank at midday. Peace terms. Peace, Davos snorted. Or ransom for the Red Keep? Roland offered a wry shrug. They flew white banners. Could be they know the lions are spent. Or they smell blood in the water, Davos muttered. He gazed east toward the river, where thousands of green roses fluttered above orderly rows of tents. The Tyrell host had encircled the city's south and east, but since Stannis seized the Red Keep, they had not advanced. Mace Tyrell's army was unblooded, eager, and uncertain. Their king Renly lay in the ground, their betrothal alliance with the Lannisters a broken reed. And now rumor claimed the Queen Regent herself had traded luxury for sackcloth, bound for exile. The Reachmen might see more gain in joining Stannis than defending the Lion. I will meet Lord Mace, Davos said at last. But not in his pavilion. We choose neutral ground. The ruined ferry wharf will do. Roland nodded and strode off. Davos lingered a moment longer, watching smoke wisp from broken marble ribs. Then he descended the platform and made for the Seahorse Gate, where a dozen river barges now served as floating jetties while city docks were mended. The route carried him through the Street of Sisters. Shops had reopened, though shutters still bore scorch marks. Cobbler's boys hawked sandals beside poor fellows preaching of divine justice, while exhausted goldcloaks patrolled in pairs, stripped of lion cloaks and wearing only city green at Stannis's order. They saluted the hand with wary respect. He returned nods, reflecting that fear could look much like reverence. At the wharf he found Maester Pylus waiting with 2 parchment rolls. Hostages roster, the Maester explained, offering the first. Ser Kevin delivered them this dawn, Cersei's children, 3 cousins from Casterly Rock, and Lord Giles Rosby's heir as surety for peace. Peace signed in lion blood, Davos said. He broke the seal, scanning names. Joffrey and Tommen were already in custody under Septon guard. Myrcella remained in Dorne, but Kevin pledged her arrival within a month. A fragile bargain, all the same. One stroke of a Sellsword's dagger in Sunspear and war might bloom anew. The second scroll contained a lesser roster. Craftsmen, healers, and masons summoned from Stormlands and Vale to help rebuild. The king insists we mend hunger before marble, Pylus noted. Bread rations triple this week. A wise command, Davos agreed. If bellies stay full, swords may sheath. He rolled the parchments, tucking them into belt. Will the king attend the parley? Pylus hesitated. His grace remains in conclave with the High Septon and Lady Melisandre. Davos grimaced. He could almost feel the red woman's gaze like a warm knife sliding between ribs. Then I speak for the crown. Clouds bruised the sky by midday when Davos rode south across the ruined ferry causeway, 2 banners fluttering behind. The black-crowned stag of Baratheon and the 7-pointed star of the faith. Wind whipped his cloak as he approached the long-abandoned wharf, timbers slick with moss. On its far end, Lord Mace Tyrell waited beneath a silk awning embroidered with golden roses. Ser Garland the gallant flanked him, armored in shining plate chased with emerald vines, grief for his slain brother Karen still etched on his handsome features. Beside them stood an old woman in mourning black, only her cane and the faint perfume of lavender hinting at the formidable mind within. Olenna Redwine, the Queen of Thorns. Davos dismounted, signaling his escort to remain back. He crossed the creaking planks alone, broad palms open to show peace. Mace Tyrell offered a booming greeting. Lord Seaworth, Hand of the King. His voice carried more heartiness than confidence. His eyes darted toward the city walls as though measuring trebuchet range. Davos bowed. Lord of Highgarden, Lady Olenna, Ser Garland. The king thanks you for seeking accord. The Queen of Thorns sniffed. Accord? An interesting word for a siege finally turned in our favor. Half your fleet smolders in the shallows, Lord Hand. Davos met her gaze calmly. Yet our banners fly over Maegor's Holdfast and the Iron Throne. For the nonce, she allowed. Then she leaned forward on her cane. We are not blind, young man. The realm is tired of lions, but it will not stomach leeches and fire priests either. If the Reach must trade allegiance, it will be for bread, not ashes. Mace cleared his throat. What my lady mother means is, peace becomes us all. Highgarden would pledge fealty to King Stannis if certain assurances are granted. He produced a parchment, fumbling to unfold it before handing it to Davos. Terms spilled across. Full pardon for all Tyrell bannermen, appointment of Ser Loras as Lord Commander of the King's Guard, vacant since Ser Jaime's injury, marriage of young King's daughter Shireen to Lord Willis, and generous seats on the small council. Davos read without comment. Some demands ranked reasonable, others dangerous. Loras in white cloak could be asset or dagger. Willis wed to Shireen might bind houses, though the girl suffered grayscale scars and rarely left her chambers. He rolled the parchment, studying them. King Stannis will weigh these terms. Ser Garland stepped forward. I would add one stipulation. Justice for my brother Renly. Whisperers claim your lord's Red Priestess conjured a demon to slay him. We want proof such sorcery is ended, or the Reach stands apart. Davos's jaw tightened. Ser Garland, I cannot speak for mysteries beyond mortal ken, but I swear on my honor Stannis ordered no demon. Karen's death grieves us all. Foul treachery by crossbow robbed him of victory fairly won. Yet the shadow that pierced Kingslayer's back looked very like your king, Olenna observed, sharp eyes sparking. Davos's pulse quickened. Word of the tunnel duel had already surfaced. In war shadows fall many ways, my lady. Would you judge by campfire tales? I judge by pragmatism, she replied, voice soft as poison. Highgarden wants stability. The Reach feeds this realm. Will your Lightbringer warm our fields, or set them alight? Davos exhaled slowly. If you so fear, you reap rebellion. Let us plant trust instead. He met Mace's gaze. Withdraw your host beyond the Rose Road by sundown. In 3 days, the king will grant audience in the throne room. Bring Lady Olenna and Ser Loras as envoys. We shall feast on new bread baked from Reach wheat, to prove we welcome your harvest. Olenna's lips pursed, but Mace nodded, eager for resolution. Agreed, though I will keep 2,000 men at Bitterbridge. Precaution. As you must, Davos allowed. He extended hand. Tyrell clasped it, meaty fingers damp. On the return ride Davos mulled their words. Tyrell alliance could tip balance, but only if Melisandre's flames did not frighten them away. He must counsel Stannis to temper zeal, yet the king more and more lent ear to the Red Woman. Night brought thunder rolling in from the narrow sea. Lightning flickered over the city, illuminating scaffolds around the storm gate and the river-wrapped hulls of half-burned war galleys. Davos climbed the Tower of the Hand, parchment in hand, boots squeaking on wet stone. Within the council chamber, Melisandre's presence was felt before seen. The air smelled of cinnamon and smoke, and the torches burned crimson. Stannis stood at the window, gaunt cheeks hollowed by sleepless nights. Lightbringer rested across the map table, its steel still faintly aglow though no hand touched it. Maester Pylus reported troop dispositions, while High Septon Arthur Allen, once a humble baker, sat stiffly, wrists crossed in silent prayer. Davos delivered the Tyrell scroll. Stannis scanned, jaw working. Lightning flashed, casting stark lines on his brow. Marriage of Shireen, he muttered. Willis Tyrell is maimed, yet cunning. Better than Tyrell swords against us. Melisandre drifted near, skirts whispering on flagstones. Fire consumes wheat as easily as chaff. The roses of Highgarden will wilt in the blaze to come. Stannis eyed her. Enough of riddles. I must rule realm, not burn it. The priestess's ruby pulsed. As you wish, your grace. Yet remember, darkness stirs beyond wall. Iron Throne is but step on path. High Septon raised a trembling finger. The prophecy of the prince that was promised speaks of a king forged in smoke and salt. We see signs. Dragon Pit's flames, the Blackwater's brine. He bowed to Stannis. Let the faith bless this union with the Reach. Bread and light shall feed souls alike. Stannis seemed to age a year in that sigh. Tyrells want Loras as Lord Commander, he said. Kingsguard must be beyond reproach. Ser Loras's skill is famed, but his heart? Will he guard king or avenge Renly? Davos ventured. Let him swear before the seven and before Lawler both. 2 oaths bind stronger than one. Melisandre smiled faintly. The Lord of Light tolerates no rival, Onion Knight. Davos met her eyes. Then let the king decide whose fire burns hotter. Stannis's lips twitched. Could it be a ghost of humor? I decide realms, not embers. He turned to Pylus. Draft reply. Terms accepted with additions. Reach grain levy to relieve capital, 2,000 masons to rebuild, and Loras to swear triple oath. Faith, crown, and kingdom. Pylus dipped quill, scribbling. Stannis handed Davos another parchment. Lists of small folk appointed to new city council. Carpenters, vintners, cobblers. See them sworn on the morrow, he ordered. The crown must look south and north at once. Reports from Wall speak of free folk massing. Jon Snow's ravens, Davos recalled. He had read them. Tales of giants, thinning patrols, and strange lights beyond Frostfangs. We require peace here before sending men north. Stannis laid a calloused hand on Lightbringer. Its glow brightened a shade. We drive iron into earth one stake at a time. Over the next 3 days, change swept kings landing like spring storm. Bakers reopened with Reach flour, selling loaves stamped with stag and star. Butchers formed new guild under royal charter, promising fair prices. The High Septon led barefoot procession from Dragonpit's ruins through Flea Bottom, blessing every orphan with a crumb of honey bread. Small folk cheered, though some whispered that the Red Priestess stalked alley shadows, her ruby shining whenever a torch guttered. On the 4th evening, a royal feast filled the throne room for the first time since Robert's reign. Tables groaned with venison glazed in blackberry wine, trays of stuffed lemons, and towering castles sculpted of almond paste. Torches glittered in golden sconces newly polished. Stormlanders in blue and green doublets mingled with Tyrell knights wearing sprigs of fresh roses. Davos stood near high table, uneasy in silken surcoat heavy with gold thread. He preferred salt-stained wool. Shireen sat beside him, shy smile edging the grayscale that marbled her cheek. Opposite, Willis Tyrell conversed gently with the girl about her favorite histories, quoting passages from Septon Barth that made her eyes sparkle. Davos felt a pang of relief. Perhaps this match could blossom. Loras knelt before Stannis at the feast's height, renouncing all lordly claims and accepting white cloak. The Kingsguard helm placed upon his raven hair gleamed like sunrise, yet Davos caught the flicker of grief in Loras's eyes when Renly's name was spoken. He worried what seeds sorrow might sow in that fertile ground. After toasts and proclamations, the Queen of Thorns cornered Davos near a latticework window, cane tapping impatience. "Well smuggled, Sir Lord," she said, gesturing at the hall. "But remember, roses grow thorns beneath petals. Try pruning too hard and you'll bleed." Davos inclined his head. "And onions grow roots. Pull them quick and tears follow." She chuckled dryly. "We shall get on fine." Her gaze flicked toward Melisandre, who stood apart by a pillar draped in shadows, ruby gleaming. "Keep that one away from my grandson's wedding bed, I beg you. Children born of fire seldom thrive." "I'll speak to the king," Davos promised, though he doubted he could leash prophecy's steed. 2 weeks later, a chill wind swept down from the north, rattling shutters in the hand's solar. Davos studied fresh ravens from Castle Black, another ranging lost. Fist of the first men abandoned. Sightings of dead men walking. Maester Pylus brought wine to ward the cold. "If these reports hold truth, the wall's garrison dwindles," he warned. "Wildlings gather under a king beyond the wall." Davos rubbed brow. "Lord Commander Jeor Mormont begs aid. But our coffers thin, and Tyrell still moves slow to release grain south." "The wall defends all," Pylus said quietly. "Without it, the realm's quarrels mean little." Davos exhaled. "I will press the king again." He feared Stannis would dismiss northern peril until throne secure, but throne would never be secure if iceborne horrors marched. That night in council, Stannis paced before the painted table, Melisandre's red shadow trailing. Davos delivered Mormont's plea. "The Night's Watch stands as sword in darkness," he said. "It now splinters. Winter nears." Stannis's eyes smoldered. "My lord's whisper of Greyjoy raids on Cape Wrath, Dornish unrest, and bandits on Gold Road. Must I fight North Winds too?" Melisandre spoke, her voice low. "The true battle lies in the cold night to come, your grace. The others do not barter like roses or lions. They bring silence." Stannis's lips thinned. Truth again. He turned to Davos. "Gather ships, 20 swift cargoes, not war galleys. Load with grain and lumber. I shall sail north myself, Lightbringer in hand. If wall falls, Iron Throne lies worthless." Shock rippled through council. Lord Celtigar protested. Leaving so soon after coronation risked fresh rebellion. Tyrell envoys fretted. But High Septon surprised all. "The Seven teach charity. If the Night's Watch starves, we starve with it. I will bless this voyage." Stannis's gaze fell on Davos. "You will remain as Lord Regent until my return. Keep city and realm." Davos's heart lurched. "Your Grace, I am no prince, no lord of long lineage." "You are honest," Stannis said, echoing words once spoken. "And we build on truth." A fortnight later, the new royal fleet, refitted galleys bearing black stag and red gold heart banners, slipped down the coast into Bite's gray waters. Snowflakes danced upon decks, though it was yet autumn. Stannis stood on the prow of Heart of Winter, Lightbringer blazing faint warmth. Melisandre at his side raised arms, fire-red hair whipping. Behind, the high masts of Fury carried grain for Eastwatch. In King's Landing, Davos watched sails vanish from Tower of the Hand balustrade, cold wind tugging his beard. Below, markets buzzed, children laughed, life returning. Yet lions still prowled. Cersei and Silent Sisters Grey plotted no doubt, and rumors said gold had flowed to hire the Golden Company across the narrow sea. The game never ended. That evening he chaired small council. Pylus, Loras, Garland, Lady Olenna, Ser Roland, High Septon. They debated coin, roads, justice. When moon rose high, Davos descended to black cells, where Jaime Lannister lay in dim torchlight, maimed arm-bound, fever broken at last. The Kingslayer regarded Davos with wary amusement. "Come to gloat, Onion Knight?" he rasped. "To bargain," Davos said. "Your father rides east to rally vassals. Your sister plots in shadows. You can end Lion Wars, swear oath to King Stannis, serve in exchange for Casterly Rock's peace." Jaime's green eyes flickered. "Kingslayer sworn again? I swore once and realms burned. Swear again and realms heal." Silence stretched, but Davos sensed hesitation beneath the bravado. Jaime had no love for Cersei's fanaticism, nor Tywin's cold schemes. He had lost sword hand. Purpose wavered. "Think on it," Davos said, turning away. "The realm needs men who've seen fire's cost." Outside cell, torch sputtered. Somewhere distant, bells tolled vespers. Davos climbed to courtyard, inhaling cool night. Above, stars shimmered like pinpricks in velvet, indifferent to crowns. He pressed a hand to stone parapet, pulse steady. The journey from smuggler to regent of the Seven Kingdoms seemed impossible. Yet here he stood, Onion Knight guarding fragile harvest of truth. Stannis braved the north. Davos must sow peace in fertile south, prune thorns and nurse grain. He offered a silent prayer to mother and warrior alike. Grant strength to wield quill sharper than sword, patience to outlast intrigue, and humility never to forget the smell of tarred holds and onions beneath deck. Far out to sea, an unseen wave shattered on a reef, its echo faint but sure. Davos smiled to himself. Storms would come again, as sure as tides, but he had weathered worse and still kept course. So long as truth remained his North Star, the realm might yet find safe harbor. And somewhere beyond darkness, in frozen lands where dead walked, a king with blazing sword now marched beneath banner of stag and star, carrying not mere conquest but the fate of living. If they both held true, one in ice, one in sun, Then perhaps even a world as cruel as Westeros could be forged anew, brighter than the broken blades and blackened bones that littered its past. PGSQL. In the hush before dawn, a silver rim of moon hung low above the city, paling as the eastern horizon bruised toward violet. Davos Seaworth rose from a cot in the Tower of the Hand, the woolen blanket falling from shoulders scarred by salt and blade. He washed in a basin of chilled water, the memory of shuddering northern seas already pricking his skin. 2 weeks since Stannis' fleet had slipped past Dragonstone and vanished into the mists of the Bight, 2 weeks since Davos had accepted the heavy chain of Lord Regent, yet still each sunrise startled him anew. He, an onion smuggler, now steward of crowns and kingdoms. He donned plain black doublet trimmed in silver thread, refusing Tyrell green or Stormland blue lest either claim undue favor. In the corridor outside, lanterns guttered where wall torches had been snuffed to save oil. Rats scurried. A palace never slept, it only shifted noises between chambers. Davos descended a spiral stair toward the council gallery, boots echoing softly on stone polished smooth by courtiers far grander than he. Maester Pylus awaited with a slate board etched in wax. Grain tallies, tax records, ship departure schedules. He bowed. Ravens from the Vale and the Dornish marches arrived at first light, my lord. Both require your seal. Feed me first, then the realm, Davos said, attempting a smile. The maester followed him into a small solar opening onto a balcony above the inner courtyard. Below, the morning drill of City Watch recruits clattered. Pikes raised, turned, stamped down in ragged unison. Their new gold and green surcoats looked stiff, dye barely dry. Barracks sergeants shouted oaths promising stripes for sloth. A serving girl laid bread, goat cheese, and watered hippocras on a table near the balustrade. Davos thanked her, fingers brushing rough calluses much like his own. He bit the bread, listening to gulls squabbling above the stable roofs. "Tell me the worst of it," he said once his mouth was clear. Pylus unfurled the first raven message. Lady Anya Waynwood of the Vale writes that Lord Robert Arryn is grievously ill again. Convulsions? She suspects the sweetling cakes his maester prescribes. She begs for a royal healer. Also, the mountain clans raid south of the Bloody Gate. Ser Lyn Corbray holds firm but requests coin for fresh men and timbers. "Healers we can spare," Davos said. "Coin, less so. Yet a sickly lord of the Eyrie leaves a vacuum Lisa Tully once filled. Peter Baelish's ashes are barely cold, but some snakes creep swift. Send respectful words and the best leech, but promise funds once spring taxes arrive." Spring taxes. Pylus allowed himself a wry huff. The Crown Vault holds 9,000 dragons. Lord Baelish left more parchment IOUs than coin. "We'll mint new dragons when the Tyrells deliver their gold," Davos said, though he had yet to taste such coin himself. Next, Pylus tapped the second scroll stained with red sand. Prince Doran of Dorne offers cautious congratulations, acknowledges the High Septon's verdict on bastardy, but demands safe passage for Princess Myrcella in exchange for recognition of Stannis' claim. "Myrcella travels under our protection already." "Aye, but Doran insists on his own escort to ensure she meets no accidents en route. He volunteers 100 spears commanded by Ser Ares Oakheart's replacement." Pylus looked up, and he names their leader Ser Quentyn Martell, his heir. Davos set bread aside. 100 Dornish spears riding into the capital could trigger Tyrell ire. Roses and sand adders share no soil. "Then we house them across the river," Pylus suggested. "Proximity with a stretch of water between." "Do so." Davos rubbed temples. "Anything from Lord Tywin?" His ravens perch silent. Scouts place him at Golden Tooth, mustering vassals loyal still. And our master whisperers report Selsword captains meeting an envoy at Lannisport docks, selling their oaths to a hush-cloaked man bearing a crimson cloak without sigil. "Golden Company?" Davos's question trailed off like mist. Pylus shrugged. "Or Bravosian eyes? Hard to know. Harder still when our own whisperers fear royal dungeons," Davos muttered. Varys had fled long before. Qyburn roamed the Red Keep at Cersei's bidding. Or had, until Davos banished him across the city wall with orders never to practice anatomy on living or dead. Spiders of the court reproduced faster than rats. Footsteps approached. Ser Loras Tyrell entered clad in the white of the Kingsguard, freshly pressed. He bowed. "Lord Regent, Maester. Lord Commander duties call me to inspect ramparts, but I must share news. My scouts returned late. Raiders strike hamlets around Maidenpool, bearing squid banners. Victarion Greyjoy himself may prowl the narrow sea." "Iron-born," Davos murmured. As a smuggler he had once skirted those black-hulled monsters. Wooden villages burned like kindling. "They smell our distractions. Shall I sail against them?" Loras asked, too eagerly perhaps. "Not yet," Davos said. "Our galleys escort grain north to the wall, not south to pirate hunts. Better we hire Blackwater fishermen as watchmen and warn the coast, at least until the fleet returns." Loras accepted the instruction, though frustration flickered behind courteous eyes. He saluted and withdrew. Davos watched him stride away, young, restless, sharper than Roses gave credit, but carrying grief like a hidden thorn. Would he stand unwavering when politics pricked hardest? He returned to Pylus. "Send word to Lord Mace. Confirm Greyjoy raiders. The Reach builds ships as swift as any. A chance for his second son to earn laurels on water instead of tourneys." Pylus smiled faintly. Brother Garland would shatter an oar in his first stroke. "Then perhaps he'll keep to shore," Davos said and stood. "I must address the guilds before midday prayer." The Ironmonger's guild hall dominated 3 blocks near Muddy Way, a hulking brick edifice blackened by soot. Its arched doors flanked a statue of a hammer-wielding warrior, neither the smith nor the warrior outright, but some anonymous craftsman saint beloved by laborers. Within, the air thickened with smoke, forge heats wafting from rear workshops. Davos ascended a dais where 30 guild masters waited upon benches carved with house marks. Anvil, cog, half-gear, pike-bolt. He cleared his throat. "Good men, I come bearing the king's will. Coin is scarce, metal scarcer. Yet the crown pledges 1 piece of silver for every pound of arrowhead and spearpoint you forge in the next moon, so long as price remains fair." Murmurs, raised brows. A stout master named Tobo Mott stood. "Arrowheads feed war, not hearths. My apprentices ask bread before steel. Hence silver," Davos replied. "Feed your ovens, feed their stomachs." A thin guildsman sneered. "Silver stamped worthless, seals of stag not yet trusted." He brandished a coin minted under Cersei, the stag half-filed to mimic a lion. Davos stepped down and took coin between finger and thumb. "Trust is built on weight," he said, breaking the coin in 2 with a small iron vise produced from belt. The metal crumbled. It was tin-plated copper. Gasps rose. He produced a new stag coin minted 3 days prior, slid it across an anvil where a master hammered once. The coin bent but did not crack, ringing true. He tossed it back. "Wait." Tobo Mott lifted it to his lips, bit gently, nodded. "Forgers who thin silver shall lose tongues," he vowed. The guild murmured assent. Davos bowed and departed. As he walked, thunder rolled again. The storm lingered, threatening early winter. He thought of Stannis battling winds off Skagos, of the wall looming. Resolve steeled. He would not fail the kingdom behind those waves. Dusk painted the sky copper as Davos approached the September of Baelor. Since the riot, scaffolding wrapped the broken spires. Workers hauled stone. Acolytes swept marble dust. In the square, a crowd gathered around the new Truth Ascendant pulpit. High Septon Artha stood robed in plain, undyed wool. His once lavish regalia renounced to better feed beggars. He lifted a candle of tallow, its flame winking against the dark. Hundreds raised their own candles, an ocean of timid lights flickering in breeze. Davos joined them, flame steady though gusts tugged. Artha's voice thundered. "Brothers and sisters, we gather not in golden halls but beneath the sky our gods wrought. Let this light remind you that justice shines even in ruin. Be you lowborn or lord, the truth binds you." The crowd answered with a chant, Truth, truth. Each repetition a little louder. Davos scanned faces. Washerwomen, cells words, grandmothers in patched cloaks, Lannister deserters clutching rosaries, a ring of poor fellows armed with wood-hafted spears. Among them stood Melisandre, ruby glinting like a coal amid white beeswax flames. She watched the High Septon with inscrutable calm. When the sermon ended, Artha stepped from pulpit and approached Davos. "A dawn fast tomorrow," he said quietly. "We break bread with widows of the riot, then reconsecrate the dragon pit site." "I will attend," Davos promised. "Bring the guild masters. They too must kneel." Artha clasped his forearms. "The Father watches." He drifted away into the milling throng. Melisandre approached, candlelight dancing within her eyes. "Your light flickers brighter each day, Lord Regent," she murmured. "It's wax," Davos said flatly. "Wax melts, wind kills. Humility keeps it burning." "Humility is embers," she countered. "Vision adds fuel." She gestured to the tower scaffold beyond. "When the red god's flame engulfs the darkness, these people will seek a single light, not 7. Remember that." "The 7 sustain them," Davos replied. "Let them keep their faith. Faith must be forged anew, like steel boiled to ore." She turned graceful as a flame swirl. "May your wax hold against storm." Davos watched her vanish among candles. A shiver traced his spine, though the night was warm. He doused his own flame, pinching wick between calloused fingers. Thunder crashed again before dawn, startling Davos from restless slumber. He dressed swiftly. A squire informed him of an urgent visitor. In the great hall below, Ser Rabar Royce awaited, travel-stained and mud-spattered, silver runes on dark surcoat dulled by long miles. Royce bowed. "Lord Regent, I rode from Gulltown with tidings. The mountain clans have seized the Ares grain stores, and Lord Robert Arryn lies near death. Maester Coleman fears poison." Royce's fist clenched. "They suspect Sweetrobin's own steward, a cousin of Bronzeyon Royce, but I swear my house no traitor." "The veil totters," Davos said. "Who holds the gates?" "Ser Lyn fights still, but clans multiply like wolves. Worse sightings of cell sails off the Sisters. Some say Myrish arms flee a war rowing this way." Davos paced. "A sickness spreads. Greyjoy raiders at Maidenpool, cell sails near the Vale, Lannister gold buying swords. All timed with the king away. If the Eyrie falls," Royce warned, "the Vale opens to pirates and dragons both." "Dragons?" "Whispers only." Royce's gravel voice dipped low. "Daenerys Stormborn has landed in Pentos with 3 grown beasts, they say. Mercenaries flock to her banner." Davos exhaled. "Rumors travel faster than crows. But we prepare." He signaled a page. "Summon Lord Commander Loras, Ser Garland, and Grand Maester Pylus for council at once." Within the hour, they gathered around a hearth crackling against damp chill. Royce repeated details while Pylus scratched quill. Garland offered to march 1,000 Rose knights up the Gold Road and swing east to relieve the Vale. Davos hesitated. Tyrell swords marching north might provoke Lannister retaliation or Dornish suspicion of encirclement. Loras suggested splitting forces. A Tyrell vanguard to Gulltown by ship, while Stormlanders garrison the Eyrie once grain secured. Davos weighed costs, then crafted orders. 20 Crenel bombard ships under Oraine waters would set sail at next tide, bearing Garland's contingent alongside Royce's heavy infantry. Meanwhile, Davos dispatched ravens to Riverrun, asking Edmure Tully, newly released from Lannister captivity, to lend river spears in defense of shared Vale borders. "A nest of alliances," Pylus muttered. "One misstep and we stir hornets." "Then step lightly," Davos said. That afternoon, Davos walked the disused cellars beneath Maegor's holdfast, guided by a single lantern. He paused before an iron door flanked by 2 Kingsguard, Ser Balon Swan and Ser Loras Tyrell.
Bolon Noidid, Ernloin King Bolt.
The door groaned open. Jaime Lannister sat shackled to a wooden chair, dim torch casting flickers across his gaunt face. His golden hair was shorn unevenly, cheekbones sharp as blades. The stump of his sword hand, wrapped in linen, lay across knee. He smirked as Davos entered. "I had visitors," he drawled. "Your Septon weeping prayers, your maester poking bandages, and a Tyrell lad quoting chivalry verses until I begged more leeches." "I offer no leeches," Davos said, taking stool opposite. "Only choice." Jaime cocked brow. "The offer grows old, Onion Knight. Serve the stag, betray the lion." "Do you know why I refuse?" "Enlighten me." "Because oaths taste like ashes. I swore to Ares, broke it. Swore to Robert, failed him by letting his son rot into cruel tyrant. Swore to Cersei, a humorless laugh. Now she prays in gray rags. Why add another crown to my ledger?" Davos weighed him. "Because this crown stands for realm, not family. Your sister's lies push children into war. The Seven judged her. The realm may yet forgive Jaime Lannister if Jaime helps spare further blood." Jaime's gaze drifted to Stump. "Forgiveness? The small folk curse my name. I could save babes from wildfire and they'd still call me Kingslayer." "I do not ask for love," Davos said. "Only service." Silence thickened. Rats scratched beyond walls. Jaime looked up at last. "Unchain me. Give me a mount, a purpose besides rot. I'll ride north with your precious king and fight others. Let the snows bury or redeem." "North?" Davos blinked. Jaime's lips twitched. "A death worth carving on tombstone. Killed by ice demon while defending men who wished him hanged. Seems fitting." Davos considered. Sending Jaime north could remove Lion Claimant from southern intrigue and lend sword skill, minus a hand to the Watch. Stannis might balk, but Night's Watch needed warriors with names that carried fear. "Agreed," he said finally. "But one condition. You leave the lion's roar behind. Don Black, swear the Night's Watch oath before the wall." Jaime whistled softly. "Cersei would lose her mind. Then realm may gain sanity." Davos gestured to guards. "Unshackle him, but escort remains. You ride at dawn for Gulltown to board the fleet bound for Eastwatch." Jaime flexed numb fingers of remaining hand as irons fell. "I'll need practice sparring left-handed. Find me a yard and a stable boy with a stick." He looked almost amused. Davos turned to leave, pausing at threshold. "One more thing. The boy Tommen, he asked after you. He loved the uncle who gifted cats." Pain flickered across Jaime's eyes. "Tell him Pounce has 9 lives. Like his uncle." He looked away. Davos closed door. In corridor, Loras waited tense. "Freeing the Kingslayer?" he demanded once they walked. "Binding him," Davos corrected. "To the wall." Loras absorbed news jaw hard. "He stabbed my brother Renly through magic or treachery, or heavens know what." "Ser Jaime did not," Davos said, but he held Loras's gaze. "Vengeance or justice, Ser Loras, choose. Justice keeps realm whole." Loras exhaled slowly, eyes cooling. "You counsel like a Septon masquerading as sailor." "I follow tides," Davos replied. "Better to ride them than drown." A chill wind rattled shutters that night as Davos pored over charred maps of the north. He placed carved stags along Stannis's projected route. White Harbor, Queen's Crown, the Night Fort, then the Wall's Eastwatch Gate. Reports from those ports were sparse. Ravens claimed snows heavy already, villages emptied. He prayed Stannis reached safe harbor before winter truly fell. A knock. Ser Roland entered, face urgent. "Raven from Castle Black," stamped Maester Aemon. It arrived past dusk. Davos seized parchment, broke ice-coated seal. Words within were crabbed, ink blotted by cold shiver. Wildlings sighted 10 leagues north. Giants among them, others at their back. Eastwatch ravens lost. Stannis not yet arrived. Supplies 6 weeks. Send help. Jon Snow acting commander. Davos closed eyes. The king may be sailing into a war bigger than crowns. Roland cleared throat. Orders. Davos steadied voice. Prepare the Weeping Lady to sail at dawn, the fastest galley we have remaining. Load every barrel of hardtack, salted cod, lamp oil will cloaks. I will personally bear this letter north. Pylus burst in amid conversation. My lord, you cannot abandon capital. Regent may travel, Davos said, but hand cannot ignore the realm's wall. You shall oversee counsel in my stead. Loras, the High Septon, Queen of Thorns. They will keep each other honest. Pylus's eyes shone with fear. The crown expects your anchor. Anchor sometimes drags a ship onto rocks, Davos replied. I am a sailor. Sailors ride storms. He clapped Roland's shoulder. Ready by dawn. Thunderheads marbled the horizon when the Weeping Lady cast off from Blackwater Rush. Davos stood at stern, cloak snapping, Dragonstone smoking Mount faint on starboard rear, capital walls dwindling. In hold lay crates of grain, bundles of raven quills, and the letter sealed with the realm's broken towers. He watched gulls wheel overhead, beyond them the steel-gray sea roiling like a cauldron. As city vanished in mist, he whispered a prayer. Mother, protect the children I leave. Father, judge my course. Warrior, shield the wall. Some doubted Seven and Lawler could share sky, but Davos looked at clouds and saw 7 shapes, then saw flames flick in distant lightning, and believed all gods watched men who tried to do right. Night fell swift. Sailors reefed canvas, lashing lines against rising gale. Davos braced at rail, salt spume stinging eyes. Ahead lay icy jaws of winter and armies of dead. Behind, a realm barely glued by fragile alliances. The candle of truth he guarded guttered in winds from both ends. Yet he would bear it onward, for if flame reached north it might join Lightbringer's blaze and gift dawn to a darkening world. Lightning forked sea, illuminating the figurehead. A woman weeping tears turned to frozen drops by cold gusts. Davos felt her sorrow in his marrow. Tears for sons lost at Blackwater. Tears for every nameless corpse in Dragon Pit. Tears for the boy Tommen exiled to Black with a kitten as friend. Beneath sorrow, resolve hardened. He would not let their deaths be fruitless. He would carry the weight, not as penance but promise. The wind roared louder, sails snapped taut, and the Weeping Lady leapt forward like a stag chased by hounds. Davos steadied his stance, hand gripping rail, eyes fixed on the invisible horizon where dark sea met darker sky. Somewhere beyond that edge, Stannis Baratheon, rightful king of Westeros, steered through gales with flaming sword and crimson shadow at his side. Somewhere beyond that, the Night's Watch braced to fall or stand, and somewhere beyond even that, perhaps, dragons beat wings across a narrow sea, heralding days of fire to answer nights of ice. But that tale waited. For now, on this rolling deck, Davos Seaworth set his jaw against the wind and commanded, "Full ahead!" As thunder boomed and spray rose to baptize the last onion night in the storms of fate.